which includes viewing platform access, or it's just $15 on top of your tower ticket, and it's for ages 8 and up.
My world is my storytelling.
My world is diverse. Our world.
My world is astrophysics. It's always been a dream of mine.
I don't know what my career pathway will be.
I approach architecture from the point of view of my culture.
I want to contribute to my people.
It's a way I can give back.
I want to change the perception of engineers.
I want to take my tohu home when I graduate.
Right now, it's about me.
And this is my chapter.
Kia ora whanau, that guy's NJ here, and I am here at the Sky Tower in Tāmaki Makaurau to check out the new Sky Slide, which is just opened. Let's go check it out. This is their brand new virtual reality experience based up on their main observation deck. It's a crazy ride, offering 360-degree views of Auckland at up to 100 kilometers per hour. The motion platform imitates the 3D rendered open-air slides, twists and turns above the skies of Tāmaki Makaurau. Counting down, punch it, let me at him. Hey! Free air, whoa! Whoever's done the render for this has done like an incredible job. Whoa! It's also really comfortable, like the motion platform's super nice. It's actually really selling all of these like different twists and turns. Another free fall, whoa! Whoa! We're heading home, boys, we're heading home. Whew. So it's $40 for the experience, which includes viewing platform access, or it's just $15 on top of your tower ticket. And it's for ages 8 and up.
Want to experience what it's like to be a part of the Waipapa Tūmatoro whānau? Join us at our Manawa Mai Info Evening and Open Day events to find out what it's like to be a student at the University of Auckland. Register today.
Up to triple elixir with the earthquake and plague, sudden death, and oh my gosh, at the last second.
That was actually a big upset. Sudden death.
I think it's their game right there. Go Zero. There you have it.
Congratulations, what a great game.
Hello, everybody. It's the final night. Thank you for joining us here at the UOA LPL Pro Clash Cup. It's ANZ. It's season 1. I'm Gino, and I'm joined by Proto, who's been taking us through the last couple of nights. How are you going?
Going good. The last couple of nights have been absolutely insane, leading us up to this point, the grand final, where everything comes together finally.
Yeah, we've kind of had a bit of a reset going into the second stage of the tournament. So why don't we just get a refresh on the tournament format and how we got to tonight. The last couple of players left in it here. You can see they started off with 236 players. We whittled them down to 16, and then over the course of the stage 1 group stage and the stage 2 playoffs, we've got 6 left tonight, and they will all be playing best of 3s all the way through up until our grand final tonight, and it will be in that dual format with the 3 different decks, Proto.
Yeah, it opens up a lot of avenues. We've seen some pretty interesting decks and mismatches here and there throughout the season so far, both stage 1 and 2. So obviously being the grand final, I'm expecting some spicy build-ups for tonight.
Well, something else spicy about this tournament is the prize pool, Proto. It's a big one, and it's $10,000, and we're getting ever so closer to finding out who's going to be walking away with $3,000 in their pocket. That, of course, is the first prize. Someone will be getting that tonight. It's a big chunk of change.
Yeah, I mean, with everyone else underneath that walking away with something as well, with that, a very gracious prize pool. So everyone here, technically a winner, I say, Gino.
Yeah. And someone's going to be, just a little bit more of a winner, because we've also got an MVP prize that we're looking to give away. So we want to hear, we want to hear your thoughts on this as well, guys. Please, in Twitch chat, on Twitter as well. Tell us who you think the MVP is. And at the end of the night, we're going to give that away to someone for the extra $250, and also just the prestige of having that title.
Yeah, we've had some pretty big names, I could say, going up for that. I mean, we've got Default, obviously, SB, some players just of note. Felipe even could be going for the run for that. So I guess we'll see at the end of the night who walks away with that MVP, that extra 250 NZD.
Yeah, and look, it's not just the players that have got stuff to win here tonight, guys. You as well, at home, sitting there. Look, only you might just be viewers, but don't worry, you've got something else to look forward to as well. So if you want to get yourself one of these triangle smarter kits, please, just get in on it, right? We've got all you have to do is watch the show tonight, and then you need to tweet at LPL_NZ with the hashtag LPL Clash, and just show us your current gaming setup. That's all you have to do, and then you will be in the running for one of these Nano Leaf light kits. They're awesome. I'm sure you guys have seen them. Your favorite streamers set up on the background. They look fantastic. Please just send out one of those tweets. And yeah, thanks to Nanoleaf for putting that up for us tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed to Nanoleaf. I mean, who wouldn't want to win some free lights to go behind them? But other than that, I mean, Genome, tonight is looking pretty good overall for everybody.
Yeah, look, I feel like we could use some as well.
Yeah,
Proto, honestly, maybe we should
actually
be making some tweets here as well. But you know what? That might be against the rules. So I'm gonna be magnanimous here and let it go to the viewers. But okay, guys, we are almost ready for our first match tonight. We are going to have a look at the bracket and see who is going to be coming up against who as we move throughout the 6 matches that we have on hand tonight. The best 6 players we have as well. So we're going to be starting off, I believe, with Default and Lemons, and then moving on to Fitchy and Zolino from there.
Yeah, continuing on through the bracket as always. The first two to go out in yesterday's play day, Professor Live and Orange Blizzard, unfortunately couldn't quite keep the momentum going towards the end of the stage 1, coming into stage 2. A valiant effort nonetheless. They will walk away with a nice chunk of that prize pool for themselves, but albeit the first 2 to fall, 6 remain for our grand final run, Gino.
Yeah, and SB up, Felipe up there in the winners bracket as well, having not dropped a match in this second half of the tournament. Definitely means we're going to be keeping our eyes on those two powerhouses. But for now, let's move into our first head-to-head for tonight and have a look at Lemons versus Default. I mean, just on these stats, it looks like Default's sort of slightly ahead, but what's your read on it, Proto?
I mean, seeding-wise, trophies-wise, win rate, Default, yes, definitely does come out on top. Lemons, at the start of the stage 1, we sort of dubbed him as the defense king, and as of the recent last couple of play days, unfortunately, it hasn't been the case. I mean, only walking away with 1 victory with a 3 crown, couldn't quite put 2 and 2 together for the last couple of days. That's people reading into his play style, sort of countering his decks completely. I mean, we saw his Mirror Goblin Barrel special just getting shut down throughout the entire night. So whether or not that is something he changes up this evening or looks to continue that style of play, I guess we will find out very soon.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a pocket pick for him, it kind of seemed. But why don't we see what he's bringing to the table today? We've got those cams happening, which is awesome. You get to see the reactions live from the players. Complete focus on their faces right now as we start the game.
Yeah, well, the grand final run, you'd hope that players are locked in, a little bit slow to start, 30 seconds just before it kicks off. 2 cards to come. Royal Ghost from Default and Lemons on the Golden Knight. 2 with the Golden Knight. So we could see a mirror pick here. We've seen it before Genome, but the Giant Skeleton in the back. I mean, shaping up to be Royal Giant decks possibly here for Lemons.
Yeah, it does. He popped the dashing dash. No, it looks like the other Golden Knight's probably a little bit too far to proc that onto the tower. Certainly different starting hands means the Giant Skelly. Oh, okay. Now that we've seen the ghost from both sides, yeah, I'm probably starting to lean towards your summation there that we could possibly have some mirror matchups here in our first match for the night.
Yeah, Goblin Drill will connect, but the Royal Ghost to get tornadoed onto the King Tower, an activation for Lemons. So, unfortunate for Lemons, albeit Default. Some early damage, and that activation is going to make his life that little bit easier. But both players hiding 3 cards definitely holds the ability for that Royal Giant. But we get to see, Gino. I mean, half the time for regulation has elapsed now. Not a whole lot of damage both sides, with Lemons actually leading the charge at the moment.
Yeah, you can see the Giant Skelly tanking on the top side here. That does allow the Royal Ghost to get in and start chopping down at this cannon cart, but oh, no, unfortunately, the death damage from the Skeleton Giant, they're not able to hit onto the Electro Wiz, and he's going to back it up now with the Goblin Drill onto the tower. We haven't seen a Goblin Drill from Lemons, so whether... there we go. Okay, so it really is the mirror matchup here coming down.
Yeah, literally just the same deck, bar a couple of different cards possibly. Yet to see the Cannon card and the Giant Skeleton from each side respectively. But either way, it's a Goblin Drill variant. Magic Archer is going to get some damage on the tower, so that is worth for Lemons. It only gets the 1 hit though with a good Tornado from Default. So good micromanagement from both sides. But there you go, yeah, just a mirror matchup for game number 1 to make things interesting.
I mean, it would be fascinating if it was, literally card for card here, because, Default has been relying on that cannon cart quite a lot, whereas, Lemons is yet to play that last card. That said, it's probably a spell. He's got the Goblin Barrel there, so you could see that coming out, I guess. This Magic Archer, though, he's managing to line that up really well, and so far, most of his damage on the tower, and indeed the 600 health point lead that he's got, is coming from that Magic Archer.
Yeah, especially with the Goblin Drill as well, just doing those odd points of damage, but the right side just taking so much damage here. Lemons has to defend with so much more elixir than he wanted to spend, now losing out on the trade. Default is in great position to mount that counter offensive once more on that right side. So much damage dealt, giving him a great lead.
I just love the confident readjustment of the AirPods there after he takes all the damage down on that tower. Default was looking pretty happy after that. So the one difference between the two decks, of course, is the giant skeleton versus the cannon cart. And I mean, it's hard to say, you know, which one of those you would favor because, you know, different points throughout this game, it's felt like both of them had the advantage. Oh, a nice tornado is going to rip the defenses away from Lemons and just allow those couple of goblins to get in there and confirm the kill essentially on that bottom right Princess Tower. So good start from Default there. I really thought that his use of the tornado was one of the things that separated them there, right? Like getting that Royal Ghost in at the start, activating the King Tower obviously helped him, and then for the win at the end as well.
Yeah, I mean, Astro and myself talked about micromanagement yesterday. It's those small little things. I mean, we had the tornado used multiple times to line up specific cards just to get the splash damage even. So things like that are a very stark difference in playstyle. I mean, 4-card cycle the same, average elixir slightly cheaper on Default side, obviously not bringing that giant skeleton as opposed to the cannon card. So very minor differences, but those are the big differences. I mean, we look at how it was played, the micromanagement side, you've got the extra tower to sort of draw when the cannon cart goes down to become that lock sort of tower spell as opposed to a troop spell. And then that is the big difference because the giant skeleton didn't really have much effect whatsoever for Lemons in that matchup.
Yeah, and I think when you get to this level, Proto, it is the small things that make the difference, right? Because you're seeing a lot less mistakes happen. You know, it's really about that playmaking ability and being able to just eke out those small differences. And we saw, just a couple of times, Default really, being able to make use of the tornado and other cards there to really just get those big chunks of health when we got to double elixir time there and take the win.
I mean, we did see Lemons doing it to some good effect as well. I mean, Tornado on his side was used to line up things for the Magic Archer, but even in saying that, Default was using his Tornado, I mean, we talk about the tornadoes, to drag Lemons Magic Archer out the way so that it stopped damaging the tower. So things like that, it's very micro. You will miss it if you're not looking for it type thing, but it is a whole big deal when it comes to damage as such. I mean, one card can do 400 a hit, especially if you're talking the Magic Archer gets 4 hits in on a Golden Knight before it's taken down. That's 400 or 500 damage gone like that. So for 3 elixir, I mean, Default's going to be liking that trade, albeit Lemons couldn't get anything to the tower anyway other than the Goblin Drill because that bridge defense, I mean, the same deck, but arguably Default played it 100% better.
Yeah, I mean, they both had Goblin Drill, right? But I think if I cast my mind back, it was, it was really Default landing that time and time again, whereas Lemons, I think, only got it out maybe once or twice.
Yeah, a bit of an off cycle maybe for Lemons, caught out on the 4 card, maybe one behind his cycle that he was comfortable with. But Default, again, micromanaged really well done and just kept his cycle in the flow, constantly doing it. But game number 2, it's a completely different deck for both sides. Minor from Default and Lemons with Valkyrie. We could be on for the minor Poison Mirror again. Provided these two players.
Yeah, I mean, there's heavy cycle coming through from Lemons here, right? So perhaps even, something else like a Hog Rider or a Mortar, perhaps. When you've got those big cycle cards that you just want to push through. But okay, the Cloaking Cape comes out. This is good. This is actually perfect because it allows the Archer Queen to take down both of those units coming through there. So Mortar is on the side of Default and Hog Rider is on the side of Lemons here. So we're seeing both decks play at quite a high tempo.
Yeah, definitely quick cycles, but possible poison for Default, maybe opting for the Fireball instead, keeping it. There you go. So it won't be the poison as that final card. It will be the Fireball to switch out. Lemons on a bit of a faster cycle with that Hog Rider, but ultimately leading the charge in cycles right now. It has had that Hog Rider down more times, but there you go, great counter. So Default definitely on top of it at the moment, but trade-wise, not looking the greatest.
Yeah, Pixel Perfect fireball there to just push that Hog Rider back in range of the Valkyrie and not take any damage from it. Meanwhile, we do have the Miner connecting. Ability hasn't been used for the Archer Queen, so yeah, if she can get over the other side, which she does and survives the log, she gets some damage in, but unfortunately not on the tower.
Yeah, you really want things like that to be connecting for Lemons. I mean, given that he's had a couple of rough games, he's going to be wanting to look to get back into form. The Earthquake shows itself, so this is a repeat deck that we saw from him yesterday. Albeit though, default, great defense so far. One hit from the Hog though, it's not what you want to be letting happen, especially when you were showing us that you can defend that Hog with a pixel perfect fireball. That time just not hitting.
All right, starting to build up some elixir on the side of Lemons here with the push. Hog EQ has been doing the work for him so far, certainly hitting harder than this Miner on the backside, which can be countered quite easily. As you can see there, Fire Spirit, some Skellies come out. That's only 2 mana, and it's really stopping a lot of the damage coming through from default win condition here. Okay, the aggro does get drawn by the Valkyrie here. That means Hog can push through with the Earthquake on the background of that. It's doing so much damage, and now even the Archer Queen almost locks onto the tower, but at least we'll deal pretty much there with the Valkyrie. We're now in sudden death, and it feels like Lemons has got this one in the bag.
It definitely has the lead, to say the least. That mortar not having too much of an effect in this deck so far, but paired with the Earthquake too. I mean, this Hog Rider has been absolutely relentless in drawing out so much of elixir cost from default just to counter it, and then having not really much to build up a counter push on this right side is definitely hurting him a lot.
Yeah, and look, whether he predicts the positioning of the Miner or not, it still seems to be working out so well here for Lemons. The damage coming through from that is just not enough, and regardless, I mean, his Hog is barely getting hits on default's tower, but it's the Earthquake that is just chipping down at that Princess Tower time and time again.
Just constant damage, but the pre-fireball this time to try and help it connect. The Miner this is, but that mortar just a bit too slow, and the log there too, unfortunately not quick enough on the draw this time. We're going to game number 3.
Yeah, you could see how, default was just struggling to keep up with this cycle there at the end, wasn't he? I mean, the mortar at the very last moment able to draw that Hog Rider back, but by then it was too late, and, the Earthquake. There's a very large duck out there causing some seismic activity.
Very well, walking around like that, you'd assume so, but Lemons going for the cheaper one this time round, with the 4-card cycle as well being 2 less than his opponent's default. That little bit more expensive could have been the reason we saw him outcycled there in that one, especially going up against the Hog EQ that Lemons was bringing. I mean, it's a very fast cycling deck, especially if you can get that Hog Rider down at a consistent level. Just keep the pressure on, as you said, we didn't see the Hog connect barely any times. I think we only really saw 2 good swings in from the Hog Rider during that matchup. The rest of the damage was just every other card bar the Hog Rider. So just having that pressure down, I mean, we saw it draw 8 elixir, 9 elixir defenses every single time, which meant that there was no real ability to get that counter going. And as soon as the fireball was used preemptively by default, read into it by Lemons, sends the Hog Rider down, cleans up really nicely, really easily. And ultimately, once more, managing really, really well on that cycle.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things was, sometimes with those Hog Rider decks, right, you see almost every card being, just a low value, low elixir card to help the cycle out. But we did see the Archer Queen in this deck, right? And I think that was very much what helped him deal with those, the counter pushes from default so cost effectively, because the Archer Queen was just slaying everything that came across the bridge this time. It just, maybe sometimes you've got a lightning in your deck, you've got something else that kind of, works well against the Archer Queen, but default didn't seem to have that pick in his deck this time.
Yeah, I methe Archer Queen pretty much single-handedly on multiple occasions dealt with everything at the bridge. I mean, for 4 elixir, she was taking down 8 elixir, 9 elixir pushes. You add that 1 extra elixir for the cloaking cape, and then you just I mean, what? Valkyrie and Musketeer was dealt with pretty much just by the Archqueen majority of occasions, which is your 2 mini tanks and damage dealer gone in an instant. For 5 elixir, you automatically lose 3 regardless. So really good pick from Lemons to sort of back up that EQ style, and then ultimately, just nothing could come from default side, unfortunately, because every time he had something built up, it was dealt with in a cost-effective, really quick manner.
Yeah, I mean, I think he had the cannon there as well, right? But he, barely needed to use that. Of course, that's not going to draw a minor, but the rest of the cards, didn't really trouble him all that much. So, Decider now. Of course, best of 3s. Doesn't matter if it's the first game here tonight or the grand final. They will all be the best of 3 duels. And Lemons and Default, they go in the distance.
Tombstone down early here for Default. Could be one of 2 things. The Lava Loon, or it's going to be the Skeleton King deck. But you can see some visible frustration there from Default as Lemons fireballs that Tombstone. -1 on the trade, but allowed to recharge up. Doesn't really mean he's lost too much in consolidation.
No, especially not when you take that tower damage into account as well. Lemons, very composed. Default. A little more agitated, perhaps, as you say. Electro Spirit, okay. That's interesting. And Royal Hogs to back it up as well. So you're actually going to have the Skeleton Dragons coming out. And sure, they can do a little bit of splash damage here, but look how much damage is eaten on that tower.
Yeah, that's not good. Unfortunately there for Default, but it is going to be the Lava Loon combo, I'd imagine, here for him. We saw this yesterday to have great effect, but Lemons on this right side allowed to connect with the Golden Knight for almost 1,000 damage. Default, you can't be letting that happen.
Oh man, we're barely a minute and a half into the game here, and a lot of that wasn't even spent playing, and yet Default has almost lost the tower. That said,
hold on.
Is this a fair trade? Because this Lava Hound has soaked up so much damage that he is completely allowed to take down that other Princess Tower here, even getting 1 bomb onto the King Tower as well. Okay, it looked a little bit shaky there for Default. Readjust the hair, and he's happy with the lead now. We also see the Mighty Miner.
Yeah, we did see this deck yesterday from him. It was actually the Mighty Miner that came in big at the end, clutched out for 3 crowns. So whether or not we see the Mighty Miner have great effect this time is a different question. But 2 Tombstones down means that those Hogs, unfortunately, not going to connect maybe as well as Lemons would have hoped. And this right side still stands strong. Yeah,
well, I'm not sure where the Electro Spirit was that time, but it would have been great if he'd had that to deal with the Skarmy, right? I mean, still a couple of connections there. You can see Lemons, he's frustrated. The Lava Hound played deep into the game, which will immediately take aggro, and sure, he can trade back with these Royal Hogs. They should be able to deal with this Tombstone, get the last couple of hits on. There it is. But where is the balloon? Surely it's coming in soon, and he needs to be able to deal with that. I mean, look, he's at a disadvantage right now, but it feels like it's not necessarily out of his hands completely, Proto.
Yeah, this right side pretty stacked up now here. Default's going to have a really good defense if he wants to stop this, because Lemons has actually got some pretty good pushes going, as I say that. Out. And flat ball there. Default now is able to reset, get his Tombstone down to draw that aggro, get the Bone Dragons in. The Mighty Miner connects to the tower as well. Force some damage with recruits there to defend. I mean, so far, good defense games from both sides.
He's relying on these Royal recruits so heavily here to just put pressure on both sides, both lanes for Default here and force him out, because obviously he wants to play heavy all on one side here, bank things up behind that Lava Hound while his big damage dealers, the Mighty Miner or the Balloon, come through. The Tombstone is saving him as well. We saw that Fireball coming out from Lemons a little bit before. It was slightly sus. I guess he was trying to predict something, didn't quite work. This time, he is continuing to chip damage down on these towers, and all of a sudden, Lemons in the lead.
The Goblin Cage only coming out now. I guess maybe that's what Default was wanting, to try and get the Balloon down this right side, but the Zappies there to just completely shut it down. And there you go. That is a great defense from Lemons, living up to his name in this matchup.
Okay, down to triple elixir time now. 30 seconds left. How do these two players How can they do this? How can they change it up with that increase in elixir and tempo and speed here? We've got a slight lead here for Default. He's 500 health up, but oh, can the Hogs get through? Yes, they do some damage, but he takes some in return. The Lava Puplings here. Default thinks he's got it, and he just pulls through.
Happy with that outcome indeed, but that was definitely tense. Lemons, with those Royal Hogs, was putting in the work on that left side. Unfortunately, just not getting them down enough, not enough damage on the board, and Default, by the skin of his teeth, with that Lava Hound in triple elixir, managing to close it out.
Yeah, obviously those big units definitely come out to play in that last minute of overtime. You can see Lemons actually doing more damage overall there, if that's right.
Yeah. Maybe not.
Not entirely sure,
Maybe
but
not.
either way, you know, yeah, just really being able to stack up, you know, behind those Lava Hounds helped him out so much. You know, what do you think about that choice to save the Goblin Cage all the way until the end there?
Probably not the best choice. I mean, the Goblin Cage needed to come down earlier, but for the rest of the decks, they were relatively well built across, you know, across all three of the matches. I mean, the mirror matchup for game number 1 was definitely a bit of a highlight.
Yeah, it was quite fun there. You know, the cannon card, just that little bit, cheaper did seem to help out. But then we moved on to game 2, and Hog EQ has been looking very strong throughout this tournament. I very much like the splash of the Archer Queen there.
Yeah, the Archer Queen was doing massive work there for Lemons, ultimately propelling him in to game number 3, which is where we saw the Lava Hound come in big, the Lava Moon rather, should we say, come in big. But either way, Default, it was a really well fought battle. Lemons came close though in the end.
Yeah, he did. I mean, right down to the wire. 10 seconds left there. You know, and he manages to take it out. Yeah, look, I mean, the balloon, it was that one big hit, I suppose, right at the start. Was there... I feel like the balloon actually... Oh, no, I think there was another push on the right-hand side. He managed to deal with that with the zappies. Didn't really need the Goblin Cage, I guess. So it was really probably that single elixir push where the Goblin Cage could have been most useful. But look, I guess we'll have to say goodbye to Lemons for now. You know, obviously this is a lower bracket match, and that's it. That's him. We've got 5 players now left in the tournament. Default will move on, and we'll move on to our second match of the night. Let's have a look at this head-to-head between Fitchy and Zolnino.
Seed 1 versus Seed 11. Fitchy with a higher win rate as well, and coming into it as one of our most aggressive players coming up against Zolnino. I mean, Zolnino has had some interesting deck builds in the last couple of play days, so hopefully he returns a little bit more on-meta picks going up against Fitchy, because this is definitely going to be a relatively difficult matchup for him, I would imagine. So, especially with Fitchy running that Mirror E-Giant setup yesterday, I mean, he's looking pretty strong.
Yeah, he is looking fantastic. You know what else is, you know, a good shout here for the gamers we've got on Proto? That's the Vulcan 122 keyboard from Rocket. Feel the impact. It's the best keyboard that Rocket has ever built. It's available right now in all of your local tech stores and online. Keep your eyes peeled for that if you want to upgrade your gaming setup a little bit. Okay, so we're looking into our second series right now. It's Fitchy, it's Zolnino. We've got one of the cams online. And we're going to have to see what these guys bring in here for our second series of the night. Wow. Arrows invested immediately to try and punish that Fire Spirit, but really it's the other way around with the Zappies coming in. Gets a hit off, but then gets reset.
Yeah, Fitchy looking like he's going to be running that Minor Mortar, Minor Poison style, maybe all 3 in this first matchup. Zolnino with the Giant Skeleton could be teasing the little Giant, and there you go, it is the Mortar. So to come on here early, start dealing some damage in the middle, but the Skeleton's doing a great job of kiting. So some good micromanaging from Zolnino, whether or not it's intentional with the spawner, but all the same, bit of a slow start for both.
Okay, Giant Skelly goes out. The bomb, I feel like, should probably hit the Archer Queen here, so that's certainly going to help out a little bit, but she's tanky enough to push through that. The Cloak comes out to try and deal with the Skeleton King. He's also pretty tanky, And who's going to win out of the two of them? It's going to be pretty close, actually. In the end, AQ comes out on top. Inferno Dragon, will that draw the tank of the Princess Tower? No, just doesn't quite get across the bridge in time. And unfortunately, the Valk keeps moving away as well. Or is it unfortunate? Because it does actually help the Inferno Dragon lock on and get a little bit of damage there.
Yeah, the full skeleton build for Zulnino here. And if it's anything like yesterday, that last card is most likely the Royal Giant. We could yet still be surprised, but the miner for Fichi at the moment just not being cycled through. I believe this is only the second time it's come out here, so he needs to be getting that one down a little bit more if he wants to catch up and consolidate on the damage that Zulnino has already found for himself. Because, I mean, with 1,000 damage almost already done, before going in, well, as we just go into double elixir, he's going to be looking really good coming into these sort of last minutes of this.
Oh, the mortar just in the nick of time will go up against that tombstone, but a well-placed log here is actually going to clean that up and means it does get a hit on the tower. And I was just about to say, I feel like you almost rarely in pro play see the mortar being the one doing the damage. It's almost there to just sort of force the other player's hand so that, you know, it opens up space for other things like your miners, your other win conditions to come through. Either way, Fichi trying to force damage on both lanes here. Now we'll go defensive with the mortar. This time he does get the lock on as the giant skeleton charges across the bridge here and is forced to use a defensive poison on top of that graveyard coming through. So does block the death damage from the Skeleton King, and a Fire Spirit gets through, but still at this point, Zulnino's ahead.
Yeah, Zulnino's looking really good as well, especially with this push on the right side, the activation of the ability. The miner used defensively even. The fireball there, though, so not the Royal Giant. Damage dealt by Zulnino on the tower with that direct spell, but that push actually really well dealt with by Fichi, who's going to get the mortar down once more, but again, kited by Zulnino perfectly. We are yet to really see the mortar connect, but that shot actually did, I believe, onto the tower, so you take those where you get them.
Yeah, look, Inferno Dragon, you know, fantastic option here to deal with the mortar at the bridge. The Valkyrie actually just going to kite the Inferno Dragon enough that it's taking a couple of hits from the Princess Towers. I almost didn't think it was far enough out for that to happen, but plays it to perfection. Archer Queen going to be on the left-hand side. Nice use of the guards there, so we don't see the Skelly drawing aggro, and once again, that poison should be enough. I mean, the Skeletons still get a couple of hits in there, but you know, it's not the full impact that it would have had otherwise. That said, the cycle coming through fast and furious here in the triple elixir time. We're seeing a lot of damage, maybe too much damage, get down on this right-hand side tower.
Yeah, Fichi's got to really put something down on the left if he wants to take this, because there's only 30 seconds left in regulation, or overtime rather, should we say here. That is not a lot of time to work with, especially in triple elixir. You just need to start throwing things down in an attempt to find that damage, because Zulnino is slowly edging closer to the win.
Yeah, you can see even leaking a little bit of elixir there on the side of Zulnino, trying to predict what Fichi is going to push in and as well try and get his attacks rolling. Once again, it's the Skeleton King plus the Graveyard combo. This time, it's dealt with a little bit better, but with 5 seconds left in overtime, both players just throwing everything at it, trying to make sure that their last spells come in. But it's Fichi who will come out on top by a mere 187 points.
He's stressed. He is stressed. You can see it in his face. He was like, he was shook. And fair enough. I mean, that one came down to quite literally the last 3 seconds. We saw arrows going everywhere. We saw fireballs. We got poisons, miners. That was a last-ditch effort for as much damage as both players could find. And Fichi ultimately coming out on top. But that was as close as it gets. I mean, 50-50. You can tell it's the grand finals. And
you can see it's such a hard situation there, because not only do you have to be, you know, you're like, okay, I need to ram as many spells as I can into this last 10 seconds to try and come out on top as far as the health points go. But you've also got to, you know, do I have any units that can get a little bit of damage in here? How much elixir do I need to spend to make sure their units don't get that tiny little bit of chip damage in right at the end? And yeah, look, Fichi just plays it that little bit better there, and as you can see, ekes out just a scrap more damage, and that's enough to pull out the win here in game 1.
Slightly cheaper as well, meaning that cycle was obviously a little bit faster in Triple Elixir. I mean, we had the mortar down a lot of the time, actually, for Fitchy, which was really good to see, just having the constant pressure of that tower card on the field. And, I mean, the damage that it does as well, I mean, ground tower damage alone is like 400 per hit. So having it sort of hit troops isn't necessarily a bad thing. It sort of softens them up as they come over the bridge into the defense side. I mean, the poison there sort of really counter the graveyard well. But Zulnino, I think the issue that may have been in those last few seconds is instead of spending that 2 elixir to get that spell down on the right side, spent it on the Skeleton King ability to try and get rid of the miner. Now, could have been the undoing there. That 2 elixir could have been spent maybe sending a graveyard over or something like that on that right side for the hoping of damage. Obviously, spur of the moment, things happen. It gets lost in translation sometimes. But other than that, it was really well done by Fitchy.
Yeah, I mean, he was cycling through the, it was Graveyard, it was Soul Summon from the Skeleton King, then Graveyard again, and it was, Fitchy was just being forced to, pull in so many defenses to deal with Skeleton after Skeleton attack. But in the end, yeah, he was good enough to do that, and yeah, you can see that's why he's up there at the 65% win rate as compared to Zulnino, who, despite getting this far in the tournament, is actually below 50%.
Yeah, one of the first, or at least one of the few, to go down below. But Fitchy with the Cannon Cart, with the Raw Ghosts, and a bit of an interesting build. The Fisherman there will pull the Cannon Cart forward to be dealt with quickly. So we could be on. I feel like all the same decks that we saw in game 1, and a Pekka bridge spam from Zornino.
We haven't seen quite as much of the Fisherman in, I feel like it was in like week 1 and 2, maybe even just week 1. Like he was coming out quite a lot. But yeah, it seems to have made a little bit of a resurgence here, right?
Yeah. Yesterday we saw him a fair bit. So interestingly enough, no surprises. Zornino though, Pekka bridge spam for him. Speaking of surprises, none there whatsoever in regards to that choice.
Okay, well, let's see if he can work his way through these zappies. It's going to be Ram Rider on the opposite side, and with so much Elixir 10 spent on the defense there against the Pekka, it felt like maybe the Ram Rider could get through. You can see Fitchy doing some mental calculations in his head, trying to work out just exactly what that means for his matchup here, as we do get the Mother Witch sending hogs onto both sides.
They're actually getting some good damage in. I mean, 500 on that left is definitely what you want to be picking up. Zulnino still yet to really take too much damage. The dash to come in, it will connect for 1 Fisherman to Kite. So some good damage for Fitchy, but not enough to equalize. And Zulnino, I mean, has a pretty all-right lead right now.
Yeah, the Fisherman actually pushing the, pulling, I should say, the Magic Archer into range and managing to get one shot off on the tower when otherwise the poison probably would have dealt with him just by itself. Pekka clanking down on the right-hand side here. We'll work together with the Electro Wizard to take this giant Skelly out. The Ram Rider played well back here. Hopefully that gives time for the Pekka to take down this Cannon Cart. There we go. He's going to push straight past it. Won't get drawn by the Ram Rider, but we do see the Tornado come out eventually.
Yeah, it didn't really do too much, or at least much that we could see, but on this right side, it's just going to be completely thwarted once more. Fitchy, a great game of defense from him so far, and Zulnino just can't make anything connect. It is going to come down to chip damage here, Genome, but with Zulnino, the only one that has a spell that can directly do decent damage to the tower, Fitchy is going to have to start landing this Goblin Drill a bit more.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, sure, Tornado does more than it used to, but it's still not really enough if you want to get down into that chip battle. As you say, yeah, the Goblin Drill just not really coming out very often, is it, so far? That said, the Mother Witch has been very effective in the times that Zulnino has been able to get her out.
Yeah, I mean, just having a couple of Cursed Hogs on the field has been really useful. Just to get that extra tower damage. I mean, even though, there you go, 2 hits from the Hog before it goes down. It's great for Zulnino in any aspect. So Fitchy, the first time we've seen the Goblin Drill in a while from him, it will connect, but at this point, I mean, there's only a minute left in play, and that's not a lot to work with, Genome, in terms of catch-up.
Zulnino just mistimes that Goblin Barrel by the tiniest amount, and it means that the Golden Knight, instead of dashing behind him into that Barbarian. Does actually get the hits that he wants. This time, however, playing Zappies in space of the tower means that Zolnino can really start to get some value with that poison spell, and he's leaking definitely more elixir than Fitchy has been so far. And now we're getting down to that point where you are just starting to throw everything in the kitchen sink at it and see what sticks. Fitchy is just slightly behind here, 6 health points. This could be anybody's game at this point.
Yeah, I mean, the Tornado would actually win it at this point, given how much damage it does, but I mean, Zolnino not really opting to use that poison just yet. The Tornado used to get rid of the damage, but yeah, 10 seconds left.
Okay, they get through that Goblin drill, and he is going to make a connection onto the tower. This should all but stitch it up for Zolnino, and this massive push coming through at the end. I mean, doesn't get the satisfying finish there on the tower. 50 health points left, but it's enough to tie things up. And once again, our best players here are going to put on a show for us. We get to go all the way to game 3.
Yeah, no real surprise. I mean, that was going to be a nail biter, given that the first one was so close. So the second, no real surprise whatsoever. Going into the third, I'm expecting the E-Giant mirror deck from Fitchy. He wants to lock it out. He wants to put a big card on the field. I mean, Zolnino could as well. We've seen him play the E-Giant before, but that game was definitely an interesting one, all the same.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing, if we're thinking about that as a matchup coming out, right, is it is the third deck, so they've got less to work with, but also they know their opponent. You know, they can narrow down the cards that they're going to use. Now, we've seen P.E.K.K.A used already, which obviously can be quite effective against the E-Giants there. So are we expecting maybe Elite Barbs then?
Could be. I mean, Elite Barbs are a good counter in themselves, albeit you got to sort of fit them into an E-Giant deck, because if I'm being completely honest, I'm expecting E-Giant from both sides. I mean, Zolnino has a really good E-Giant build, but obviously Fitchy has that mirror E-Giant build that he's been running on multiple occasions that has proven to be undefeated as of yet. So if Zolnino brings his E-Giant as well, that could make for an interesting fray. But yeah, the Elite Barbs, if they make their way in compared to what, well, if Zolnino runs the E-Giant, that is. I'm expecting it from both sides of the card, though. So fitting in the E-Barb into that type of deck, a bit difficult for Zolnino. So could be the choice, but you could just counter E-Giant with E-Giant. I mean,
I've got to say, I think Zolnino has been impressing me more as the tournament goes on as well. You know, he had an okay start, and then I feel like he dropped off a little bit. But, you know, looking at the level of play he's bringing out right now against Fitchy, it does feel like he's a player who's adapted very well to the sort of higher stakes in this part of the tournament.
I mean, adaptability for all of the players. I mean, yesterday, sort of towards the start of stage 2, we saw insane counterplays. I mean, the E-Golem deck that was Professor Live it just got shut down. The first time it was played, it did really, really well. And then every subsequent time after that, players were just ready for it. I mean, and that was 10 minutes after the game had concluded. People had counters ready to go. So just seeing people already making those changes, having those decks ready and reading into the play, I mean, knowing that their opponent is going to bring this deck here, and if they go to the third, that's when it gets interesting. That just highlights how much professionalism that these players all bring to the tournament, because they are ready, they're expecting, but not only that, they've got the adaptability to make changes on the fly, which they are doing expertly between games.
Yeah, look, it feels like the players are probably doing that right now. You know, a little bit of time between game 2 and 3 here as the players are, you know, just trying to do the math in their head, work out what is and what isn't available, and try and make sure that they have the perfect counter set up for what Proto at least thinks is going to be at least one E-Giant deck coming out from these two fantastic players. I mean, considering they both lost and dropped down into this losers bracket, you know, last night, Proto, who were you expecting to take this out of Fitchy and Zolnino?
It's hard to pick. It really is. I mean, Fitchy, I would probably pick Fitchy if I had to choose one off the top of my head. Looking at how Zolnino's been playing in the matchup so far, definitely could be an upset, and he could definitely take it. I mean, first game was a matter of a matter of HPs, 187.
True.
That is not a lot. That's one hit from majority of cards or one spell in competitive clash. So being that close and then coming down to a 50 damage sort of difference at the end. Yes, it was lost in the tiebreaker, but even still, they were relatively sort of evenly matched up throughout majority of the games that we've seen them play so far in the series. So coming into the third, it's anybody's game to win.
Okay, well, here we are. The decider, Zolnino versus Fitchy. It was Fitchy with a good start there, and Zolnino managing to bring it back in game 2. Can he keep the momentum up? Well, he's certainly keeping the vibes up there with with the P.E.K.K.A. boombox.
Yeah, Fitchy, Zolnino both just waiting. This is sort of telling possibly of an E-Giant deck, especially given that Fitchy likes to wait to start things off when he's running it. So I could have called it. We may be wrong, but no, Zolnino with a Minor Poison, definitely looking like it's what it's going to shape up to be.
And a Bandit out on the other side. If I remember correctly, the Golden Knight was used both times, so you know, that's kind of your budget Golden Knight coming out there right now. As you say, Night Witch. I feel like the only time we've seen Night Witch come out so far has been in Golem decks.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, with the Minor Poison, it could definitely be a Golem deck, but I would sort of be expecting a Pump if it was, but it's actually a Lava Hound. So Lava Loon Minor with a Poison.
Okay.
Fitchy with that Dark Prince. P.E.K.K.A. bridge spam from him. I mean, E-Giant's just completely circumvented, it seems.
Yeah, it looks like we've got the flying golem essentially coming out here, and yeah, as I said, Goblin Cage comes out. Ooh, lightning to take out a couple of those things, and the double. I mean, yeah, Ram Rider coming in off the back of that Goblin Cage being used does mean it's a lot easier for it to push through there. Okay, a couple of connections from the Lava Hound here. Can he do anything to stop the Bandit? No, that's straight onto the tower. Better hope this Flying Machine gets a couple of hits in, but it's not going to because the Electro Whiz is right on top of it with the reset. Yeah, there you go. Well dealt with by Fitchy, only really conceding 100 extra. Still has 2 cards left though. I'd imagine that would be the P.E.K.K.A. Maybe an extra spell of some script, but there you go, the P.E.K.K.A. to come out. So no E-Giant. I guess I don't know these guys as good as I thought I did, but Zolnino leading right now and is happy with the performance, I'd imagine. Yeah, look, some changes have been made. I guess, you know, they think things have got to change for them to come out on top when the stakes are this high, when people have already seen those decks that we've seen in previous weeks. The Guard's doing a good job here of stymieing the P.E.K.K.A. on his side of things, and this Lava Hound just by itself is just chip by chip taking apart brick by brick. We see a lot of damage being done here, and Fitchy somehow has just given this up in the last moment here. Zolnino managing to push through, and Fitchy just couldn't deal with that Lava Hound. He just let it go to town, and not only did it do so much chip damage over that time, but he left it alive for so long that the other banked up troops started coming in and doing the damage as well.
There was not a lot of air defense there for Fitchy at all. I mean, we had the Ram Rider, which kind of does air defense as she sort of runs by. But other than that, the Electro Wizard was really it in the lightning spell, and that was all she wrote for Fitchy's air defense. Zolnino, a great pick on going in, because, I mean, we saw the Arch Queen used early, cards very similar to that. So Zolnino bringing the Lava Hound deck at the end, an insane pick, especially given that he could pick that and then bring it. I mean, again, we talked about the picks, we talked about the professionalism. That is what you wanted in that matchup.
Yeah, I mean, that's an incredible pick there, really, to bring out that Lava Hound and just somehow predict that, you know, Fitchy wasn't going to have the requisite air defense. But why don't we cast our minds back to the game 1 now? And, you know, that was where Fitchy showed up.
Yeah, it really was, having that Archer Queen there. Arguably the difference maker in that first matchup. But yeah, Zolnino unfortunately couldn't quite connect with the Giant skill.
Okay, and then moving on to game 2. It was a little bit different there. Saw the fishermen come out. Saw Pekka used from both sides throughout this series.
Yeah, we did. Both players opting for the bridge spam choices, and yeah, look, deck number 3 was definitely an interesting one. Having Lava Hound there was good to see, but no balloon was an interesting choice as opposed for the Night Witch.
Yeah, I mean, as we said, I think the only other times we've seen that happen have been with a golem, right? And when we're talking about, whether, Fitchy would have had the defenses against something like a golem, he probably would have, right? But switching that up to something that's maybe not as good of a card, but, against Fitchy's deck, it was definitely the better choice. Just super smart by Zolnino. So, hats off to him. He definitely made that work, and he's put Fitchy out of the tournament. Remember at the start we were saying he was one of the favorites, and he's gone out here in what I guess is 5th to 6th place, right? So anyway, that's our first 2 series for tonight, guys. We're going to see the winners of those 2 games coming up against each other next, but we'll go to a short break now. Please stick around, and we'll see that matchup.
My world is my storytelling.
My world is diverse.
Our world.
My world is astrophysics. It's always been a dream of mine.
I don't know what my career pathway will be.
I approach architecture from the point of view of my culture.
I want to contribute to my people.
It's a way I can give back.
I want to change the perception of engineers.
I want to take my tohu home when I graduate.
Right now, it's about me.
And this is my chapter.
All right, guys, we're back and we'll be getting into the third series in just a second. But first, make sure you fasten your seatbelts for a spin around the Sky Tower with their new VR experience, Sky Slide. You just purchase tickets online, use our promo code LPL Slide, and you get 10% off the Sky Slide bundles until the 30th of August. If you need any more info, just chuck in !Sky Slide in the chat. Yeah, now look, also a reminder that, yeah, if you're at home, you've got some stuff to win tonight as well. Thanks to our friends over at NanoLeaf. All you need to do is tweet at LPL_NZ and just chuck in a picture of your gaming setup there. Just like we've got I believe we've got someone else who's done that here. Blakey NZ, love it. Nice looking setup here from them there. So if you want to chuck yours in as well, you can be in the running to win that NanoLeaf setup for your gaming rig as well. Now, got a bit of info here for you guys. We did unfortunately notice something in that last series between Fitchy and Zolnino, and there's a reason we believe, Proto, why the good game was thrown out early.
Yes. Yeah, there may or may not have been, this is all that I've said, I've heard this. There may or may not have been a double use of the poison card by Zolnino. We saw it in the Pekka bridge spam, and then we subsequently saw it in the Lava Hound deck as well. So unfortunately, the admins have decided that that's not on, and that will unfortunately be the end of his run.
No, that's the rules in the dual format. You need to make sure you are not repeating any cards. And as much as I love poisons, you know, you can't have it in every deck, guys. So as a result, yeah, that means Fitchy will be moving on. We'll be seeing him in this next matchup. So it's gonna be Fitchy versus Default here, the winner of our first and second matches.
Yeah, look, this is going to be another interesting one. Default putting in the big work in the first game and clutching things out there. So coming into this matchup, Fitchy did win it off the back of decision, so possibly a little bit rattled coming into it, but I don't imagine that's going to affect him too much. He's looking pretty good regardless. So coming into this, again, a very even matchup.
Yeah, I mean, you know, roller coaster of emotions here from Fitchy. He thinks he's gone out. I don't know, maybe he noticed the double poison as well and was kind of like, oh, what's going on here in the second game? You never know. But either way, he's got to, you know, just hit the reset button quickly on his mental and get back into this game, because now he's straight back in the running for that $3,000.
Yeah, right back into it and just where he left off moments ago. So we could see him break out the E-Giant. E-Giant deck. But whether or not, he's had some good success with everything else that he's brought to. I mean, his Pekka bridge spam was really, really good. The minor cycle, the minor mortar with the goblin drill, really, really good as well. So even if he continues using decks like that, wouldn't really be surprised if he walked away with a victory. But Default's had some pretty good showings so far tonight also.
Yeah, look, both players definitely have got something to hang their hats on. Yeah, I'm always a big fan of the E-Giant, so I kind of hope it comes out as well here. We haven't seen it yet tonight. I wonder, is that because players are cottoning onto it, or? But I don't know. It seems like it's come in waves throughout the tournament. So perhaps it's just, you know, some players better than it with others. Some, you know, can use those sort of. You know, the build-up decks a little bit better. It's it's honestly a bit hard to say.
Yeah, I mean, decks that sort of do well with ramping. I mean, we see sort of more expensive sides. I mean, we saw it with the Lava Hound Balloon deck, I believe in matchup number 2, where you get into triple elixir if you can sort of play defense for the majority of the match, and then as it sort of ramps up to that triple elixir time, you just keep throwing that big hitter down and you cannot stop it. It's just so much hit points to deal with while trying to push as well on your own respective side. Fitchy, definitely feeling it coming into this one, but Default, I'd imagine he's ready and raring to go. He's just watched those matchups himself, so definitely primed coming into this.
Okay, this is they are, I guess, we're sort of fighting for, you know, 3rd and 4th place here effectively with these two guys. On their last life, it is the lower bracket. Whoever loses out of Fitchy and Default will be going home.
go. The ability actually used this time.
Oh, that was
the
a great
Archqueen
log.
putting in big work. Yeah, great log to deal with all of that. The Goblin Cage and the Cannon Cart there. Hog will be good for at least, no, not one, just as the Goblin Bruiser finds the punch. So Fitchy, good defense, stopping that Hog Rider in its tracks.
That sigh of relief from Fitchy coming out. He knew that was real close. You know, that hundreds of damage there. That was only a couple of frames in it, honestly. But the Mega Minion doing really well there to not take any damage from the Princess Tower. Also placed very well. So Fitchy really just, you know, having things down to a fine art in this first game between him and Default.
Yeah, great kites, sort of great positioning plays, but either or, it's going to be the champions battle on the left side. 2 cards left for both players respectively. Could be the graveyard for Fitchy. Indeed it is, as it comes out, as we speak about it. Now, Default does have the Earthquake to counter, so not the poison that could have been used, but again, great log and just completely shuts down the entirety of Fitchy's push.
Yeah, it's not as much of a direct counter, the Earthquake versus the Poison against the Graveyard, but you can see with the addition of the log, only takes a couple of hits there. Now the Goblin Cage has gone down to that Skelly Giant. The Hog is straight through, and we were talking about how many hits it was getting at last time. This time it's 2, as well as some nice death damage there from the Skeleton Giant as well. That Skeleton, he's so tanky though, and you can see just managing to get off his own mini graveyard in the meantime. Not too many souls collected though, so it doesn't really do much.
Yeah, not a great effect, and I mean, we've spoken about this on multiple occasions. Genome, the Giant, Skeleton King with that ability just is really hit or miss in competitive Clash, or at least from what we've seen in this tournament so far. So using his ability wisely, I mean, Fitchy has done good so far, but Default's counter for it is just perfect every time. That log just there to answer.
And this is going to be such a great setup here. Just manages to get the Skelly Giant out in front, so it's tanking for not only the Hog, but also the Archer Queen as well. I'm not sure. Oh, I must have used the cape on the defense there, because it looked like that would have been within range to get some serious damage down. Either way, Default's sitting pretty right now. Certainly ahead. The Fire Spirit comes out, has to play the Skeleton King to draw aggro from that.
Yeah, good damage onto the Skeleton King as he charges up the graveyard once more. Met at the bridge though, the cannon cart by the Giant Skeleton. Default on this defense has been absolutely impeccable. Fitchy, you can see visibly shaking his head, knows that he just can't get anything to connect whatsoever, and is seriously struggling right now.
Okay, Earthquake finally coming out on top of the tower rather than in defense. And yeah, look, it's just yet another tool that Fitchy is struggling to deal with here, as you can see both towers on both sides are at a deficit. Now we get into that triple elixir time, just like you were talking about at the start of this game, Proto. Who can use this to their advantage? Which deck will it swing towards?
As this begins to ramp, I mean, the Giant Skeleton being placed at an extended rate on triple elixir could be scary, but I mean, death damage not dealing with the Skeleton King. Hog Rider once more, and that cycle just to the Hog Rider for Default could be the deciding factor. There's not much time left at all, 30 seconds, and right now Default leads with a pretty convincing amount of damage ahead of Fitchy.
I mean, he's getting incredible amounts of value out of this Archer Queen every single time she's put down. He's just able to cycle heavy units in front of it, and that's just getting so much value. And unlike Fitchy, who really isn't able to get much out of his Skeleton King, which really, in combination with the Graveyard, was his win condition for this match. And now another couple of hits from that Hog Rider, putting this beyond doubt for Default.
Really well done, really well managed. And we talk about cycle, and that was just perfect cycle, just that. And again, pressure from the Hog Rider. We saw it from Default in his first match of the evening, the constant use of that Hog Rider in a very similar deck, just keeping up the pressure. Fitchy could not build up a push of his own. I mean, yes, the Graveyard available, but having the guards, having the Earthquake, having the cannon, I mean, it just, nothing was there to connect whatsoever for Fitchy.
Yeah, really struggled to get through there in the end. You can see there was a big disadvantage there for Fitchy across the whole game. You know, was it the elixir? Was it the 4-card cycle? Who knows? I think really in the end it was just that that ability for him to eke value out of the Archer Queen and the Hog when necessary. The way those 3 cards and the Giant Skeleton were working together to just force Fitchy's hand on that left-hand side really meant that Default came away with the win quite easily there in the end.
I mean, even the Log as well, as a single-use spell,
true.
just completely locking down the Skeleton King, even used to sort of get the Graveyard and the Skeleton King on some occasions. So just the use of that one spell elixir to get rid of a 5 elixir and 6 elixir when you pop the ability, that is a great trade. And it's a trade that Default was walking away with 9 times out of 10. So Fitchy, unfortunately, doesn't like to see those. It does not like to see those at all, and conceded a lot of elixir loss on pretty much every engagement that he took throughout the entirety of that map.
Okay, well, he's gonna have to go away, retool now, and bring out something completely different here for deck 2. Obviously, there was a bit of a struggle there. Definitely one of the matchups we've seen where, you know, it definitely felt like there was a deck imbalance or a deck mismatch, perhaps, on top of the skill between the players. But you look, there's still time to come back, and I don't know. It seems even when he's down 2-1 in the series, there's still time to come back, Proto.
Yeah, there definitely is. I know I harp on about it. I know I keep sitting here praying, but E-Giant's available. Fitchy, it's your strongest pick. It's undefeated. Why have we not seen it? It happened to him yesterday. This is why he's in the lower bracket. I mean, he could have bought E-Giant Mirror, didn't. Finds himself in the lower bracket, didn't bring it out against El Nino. Had he bought that deck, that Lava Hound probably wouldn't have been doing much, even with the repeat poison. So either or, I'm expecting it. I'm hoping to see it. It is his strongest pick. Whether or not he's feeling it tonight could be a deciding factor. But yeah, Default right now, secured with 1. Definitely looking good to continue on from here.
Yeah, Default looking very strong right now. Maybe it's just a matter of trying to, you know, fit it somewhere in the 3-game series of Duel and surprise the opponent with the Electro Giant somehow, that, you know, if they can't get it on. You can see Default feels like, he knows that Fitchy's not playing anything anytime soon. He's going to put the jacket on, make sure his hands are warmed up. I mean, you know, of any game, this is definitely one that you need your fingers really ready to go and not making mistakes. Every hex, every square that you alter where your cards and where you're putting them down can make a big difference in the end.
Indeed it can. Live barrel to start for Fitchy. Zappy's drawn by Default. A little bit of a trade here, but still just bleeding a little bit. As the Royal Ghost starts off in the back, so it's not looking like my build for either side. Once again, shame. Poison from Fitchy. Gonna be good damage on that Musketeer.
Yeah. The slow as well now as the Mighty Miner comes out and gets to work on that Royal Ghost. Will get to the tower. Will be able to use the ability to switch it up? Well, the Electro Giant's in the middle, so using the Explosive Escape probably wouldn't really help here. And it also means, it's a fantastic counter, right? It means you can't ramp up the damage, really. Can't switch sides. It's just, it's kind of all over for the Mighty Miner when the E-Wiz comes out. Okay, another Goblin Cage here. Definitely seeing that as one of the premier defensive buildings throughout this tournament, and well placed by Default so that the Golden Knight cannot get the extra dash onto the tower.
Like a bridge spam for Fitchy. A good choice coming up against what appears to be a Royal Hogs deck, but Graveyard actually to come, Poison to counter. So Fitchy actually looking good on this defense on this left side with the Royal Ghost in tow, as well as some damage does trickle onto the right. So yeah, Fitchy actually looking pretty good right now with that Mother Witch dealing some good damage there for him.
Yeah, I mean, Mighty Miner even a good counter to that P.E.K.K.A as well, right? Especially if you can get some of those Royal recruits to tank first. could be a good option here. Oh my god, that was maximum value for the Golden Knight there, coming through 3 of the Royal recruits, 3 of the Zabbies, and onto the tower. But even with that, it feels like Default is still doing a good job here as the remnants of those troops push on towards the tower. We do have Fitchy with the poison taking down that graveyard though.
Yeah, Default not looking too good right now. The dash comes out, but it's drawn early by Default with the Goblin Cage. Default still has that 1 card in the back pocket. Could be a win condition he's hiding for some reason. Maybe waiting until triple elixir, could be like a Royal Giant, something along with... No, it's arrows. Only used now. An interesting choice, but all the same, he actually holds the lead at the moment.
But look at that, we got 5 hogs from the Mother Witch, because played in response there to the graveyard has just made such a huge difference, and Default struggles to deal with it. He knows he's got the Ram Rider on the other side, who's just going to make it to the tower and sneak a hit in as well. So at this point, Default has got his back against the wall, but it doesn't feel like it's all over. The Mighty Miner does grab the aggro from the tower here, so the Skeleton's in a position to do some damage.
Yeah, with the Golden Knight cleaning up, it's not actually going to be the retake of the lead with the poison down. So Fitchy, 30 seconds, the Golden Knight to connect. Default not happy with how that one's panned out.
Golden Knight has been the golden boy here from Fitchy. He's just done so much damage and so much work here to allow him to get into the lead once again with 20 seconds left. Triple elixir time. Okay, this is it. Who can make that last push and get the damage? Who can confirm the win here? Golden Knight doesn't grab onto the tower this time, but look at the units just keep streaming down this left side for Fitchy, and he's going to take the dub. Default a little disappointed in himself there.
Oh, another close one coming down to the dying moments. That, again, was really, really close. Both towers on 700 health. Fitchy, I believe, in the lead by 30 HP, something like that. It was too close. Way too close once more, Genome. But again, another nail biter to send us into the 3rd map of this series.
Well, why don't we have a look at the stats for that second game here as they tie things up. Equal average elixir here, which, you know, don't see that every day, I guess, when you've got completely different decks coming up on either side. But it was, of course, yeah, Fitchy just able to take the win. And I really think it was off the back of those Golden Knights. I mean, twice we saw like almost maximum value eked out. I mean, you need to think about that, right? That's 1 elixir you're investing, essentially, you know, to activate the dashing dash and just doing so much damage from it.
Yeah, I mean, 3 recruits, 3 Zappies, and the tower with 2 hits on before being taken down is definitely worth, I think is the word that we should be using, because that was big. And it happened on multiple occasions. I mean, the 6th one was definitely a big highlight, but you also had a couple of instances where it sort of dashed onto a tower, then dashed onto the main tower, or dashed onto a troop and dashed onto the main tower. So even getting those sort of 1, 2, 3 dashes as opposed to the 6 dash, very, very worth. For 1 elixir, I mean, you're doing a huge amount of damage, and then to subsequently get hits onto the tower, given where he's ended up in the dashing phase, ultimately you're going to be happy with the turnout from that. For what, 5 elixir total, you've done an insane amount of damage to not only all the troops in that lane, but the tower as well. And ultimately, that's why Fitchy, as you said, I think ultimately the win condition for him was the amount of times that Golden Knight landed.
Yeah, and I mean, you'd have to be a little bit sad when you saw the Golden Knight come out, you know, if you're Default, right? Because you've got so many of those multi-troops, those swarm troops in your deck. You know, it's a bit hard to get away from it at that point. You don't have a P.E.K.K.A to sit there and just soak it up by itself and take the one big hit, right? You have to be playing, you know, those multi-unit cards. It's you know, there's no way to really get around that with the deck that he'd constructed.
Yeah, I mean, the Goblin Cage was there, but it wasn't really enough on most occasions. But going into map number 3, the final map, both players looking to lock things in here. Obviously, this is where it all ends for one of these two, and in terms of this matchup. But I guess we'll see how it pans out. Genome slow starts again once more from both sides.
Default starts off with the Zap, probably one of the least used small spells I feel like we're seeing come out here in this dual format, which I'm always a big fan myself, but you know, can understand why it's not necessarily you know, top pick in this top level of play.
Yeah, as we burn the time down, it all starts to sort of become a little bit clearer. Both players waiting for at least double elixir, or for one of which to make the first move. Default did get a bit of early cycle in with that spell down, but Fitchy probably pretty happy with the hand that he has at the moment, given that he hasn't sort of burned anything just yet. Both players just very patiently waiting to get those first cards down.
Fitchy even having some words with the camera there. Not sure what he's narrating to us, but certainly thinking it through. What could Default have? What is he waiting? Is it worth it for me to play first? Tombstone comes out with the Archer Queen on defense for Fitchy. Okay, it's another Lava Hound. We're seeing a lot of this big tank here today.
Yeah, Default really seems to like the Lava Hound. But with the many P.E.K.K.A. a choice in the back from Fitchy that maybe we haven't seen as much of. He's going to be coming forward Bomber as well here. So interesting choices. No air defense right now other than the Archer Queen taking down that Lava Hound. But there you go, the E-Giant to come. The Balloons and the Bone Dragons on that side as well. But this is what we've been waiting for. The cannon will kite. That E-Giant cleans everything up. I mean, look at it. It's just gone on that left side. And the kite with the tornado as well. Fitchy, this is what we've been waiting for.
Okay, I feel like you don't see that every day, managing to tornado the balloon onto the King Tower. Default almost signaling, or is that one of the other fans signaling that they knew that it was coming with the E-Giant emotes coming out here. Now, it was well placed last time to just clean up, you know, was it the Mega Minion, the Skeleton Dragons as well. This time we have to know the Archer Queen is waiting for these air units, and you know, last time the Lava Hound won because they didn't have good enough air defenses, right? Archer Queen absolutely has this in the bag.
Yeah, 100%. It's everything locked down by the Archer Queen now. Unfortunately for the E-Giant, he's going to push the Queen over in front to take the aggro. The Zap could reset, but the Giant's going to have to get there relatively quick. Mini P.E.K.K.A. as well, and it actually will reset. Look at the damage being dealt here for Fitchy. The E-Giant coming in huge. Look at it trickle away. 1,000 damage dealt. And this counter push completely bought. I mean, all those troops on 1 HP. Fitchy, great play from him.
Okay, now he's on the defense. Fitchy having to pull out cards just to try and make this work. Obviously, he invested so much into that push that it's given Default an opportunity. I think we see actually a mirrored tornado there. A lot of a lot of use of that spell coming out from Fitchy, just trying to let the Princess Tower do all the work, because apart from the Archer Queen, he's got nothing else really that can get to work on these big air units. The Default is just spamming on repeat at him. This time, the Electro Giant not really making it over the side.
Having to mirror a lot of these defense cards as well. I mean, the Cannon, Tornado, this E-Giant really just not connecting whatsoever. And it's not looking good at all here for Fitchy. The Tombstone in an interesting position. But yeah, I mean, if he builds up this Lava Hound one more time, unless Fitchy can get the mirror E-Giant down and close it out here, which I'm assuming is what he's going for, indeed it is, Default has got this defense really well patterned out.
Yeah, and he's got the Tombstone as well, right? Which kind of helps, because the Tombstone isn't an attacking defensive building, which means it only takes about, half the damage from the E-Giant. In the nick of time, Default pulls apart that attack, and now he's got one last chance to try and put this damage through. The Earthquake comes through though. Default expecting it. You can see down the bottom there, you can tell he knew he was done for. And Fitchy with Proto's favorite deck, and as you said, the deck that Fitchy just can't seem to lose with. The streak continues, and Fitchy is going to be moving on.
I told you, it's the deck that he needs to bring. It's the win condition. It is his bread and butter. doesn't lose with it. There you go. I mean, the E-Giant's not a great effect, if I'm being completely honest, in terms of tower damage, but cleaning up the pushes on majority of occasions, the full card cycle cheaper, the deck cheaper. I mean, everything in regards to that deck in that matchup, really, really good. I mean, yes, there wasn't air defense, but the Archer Queen once more, great value. And just the E-Giant to sort of walk around and zap everything as he sort of lumbered his way across the bridge. Insane value.
Yeah, I mean, I think the tornadoes he got were insane value as well, often because, you know, they were so useful in so many ways. You could pull things into the E-Giants. You could, you know, activate your King Tower. You could just repeatedly use it to drag those air units away and use the Princess Tower as well. So, I mean, thinking all the way back to game 1, what did you think of this matchup?
Yeah, it was relatively close. I mean, two similar styles of cycle decks with default arguably looking a little bit better with the build. But going into matchup number 2, we saw the equalizer, the Golden Knight having insane value with that P.E.K.K.A poison as well. And I mean, default just could not keep up with the Mighty Miner.
Yeah, I mean, you get big value out of these champion cards, right? And we saw that, you know, in the 3rd game there as well, where default, you got to remember, didn't choose to play one. There is no champion card in this deck. As you can see, it's almost completely air attack. And apparently, for Fitchy, you know, the Archer Queen plus some defensive buildings and some spells is enough to deal with all of that.
Yeah, I mean, even the fact that not having direct air defense aside from that Archer Queen, he was able to put the hurt down and ultimately lock it out, keep his run going forward in the bracket.
All right, well, thanks, guys, for sending your tweets in. Obviously, lots of people's interested in, you know, grabbing one of those Nano Leaf kits there to spice up their home setup. Here it is from Bunny, saying he needs some... he needs some love. Watching the stream impaired with COVID at the moment. Well, look, best of luck, mate. Hope you feel better. And look, if you walking away with one of those Nano Leaf setups, I'm sure you would be. Look, no winners just yet. We can't give it to you just yet, Bunny, but my fingers are crossed for you. But for anyone else who wants to jump in, please remember, tweet at LPL_NZ and use that hashtag, which I'm sure will be in the Twitch chat there to try and get a chance to win that one.
And thanks again to Nano Leaf for providing that. I mean, the triangle kits, they go, they really do. But other than that, Genome, we're looking forward to some more Clash.
Yeah, look, why don't we jump into the next matchup, or at least look at the players who are coming up. It's time, Proto. We've got the winners bracket matchup. This is SB versus Felipe. As far as our bracket goes, these are essentially the 2 best players that we've had in our second stage right now. They've been looking fantastic. You know, tell us a little bit about, you know, the last couple of days where we've seen these guys dominate.
Yeah, I mean, SB has had some pretty insane matchups taking down names like Professor Live, like Default. So coming into this, obviously going to be a little bit of an underdog, I guess we could say. We got the cam going here. But Felipe has looked really, really good too. Arguably one of the players that has stayed in that upper bracket the longest. So this matchup's going to be interesting, but already off to a quick start here as cards begin to fly.
We've got the Mortar coming out. Does just get his own Mortar out in time to get that lock on here. And, well, I don't know. Is it another mirror matchup, or have we got something a little bit different?
I think relatively similar, given that we've seen 2 Mortars. It'll probably be Minor Mortar from both sides with the odd change. Obviously, the cannon card, there you go, the Miner of SBs to come out. So he does have his own setup, but the Skeleton Giant taking all of that, allowing the Miner on the left to do big damage. That is very worth for SB, and closing the cannon card down. Felipe, not the greatest start, unfortunately.
No, and it looks like he played the bats maybe just a second too early there as well, allowing that Musketeer to get through and start getting some extra hits. Now, what can he do to distract the Skeleton Giant? The Valkyrie does come out. That's fantastic. She'll be able to deal with that and the guard shields at the same time. Having to invest a log though, however, just to make sure those guards don't get through is a little bit annoying when he knows that this minor bat attack is coming on the opposite side.
And doing a good amount of damage too. His own minor will land and the Arch Queen will be used as a tank, but the Fire Spirit splash damage will actually go huge. So as well as huge, the Musketeer on the left, 2 shots, 3 even before being taken down, and Felipe finds some great damage in that trade.
Oh, the Cloaking Cape just enough there. Oh, even managing to splash 1 attack onto Felipe's right tower here. So look, it's been kind of even so far. When you think about it, you know, it's only the lowest tower health that really matters in the end. So at this point, both players going neck and neck.
Yeah, good damage being traded here. The mortars, unfortunately, still yet to connect for both players. As that giant skeleton bomb so close, but unfortunately still too far. And SB, just that little bit in front of Felipe right now, as he's looking good to take the lead, at least going into that overtime. But yeah, the poison only just now coming out. An interesting choice.
Yeah, I guess he, well, look, it perfectly, you know, meted it out there. With that, in addition to the damage coming out of the Valkyrie, means he is able to clean up that attack very well. And then just constantly trying to trade back and forth with these miners and mortars. Who can get the best of it? Who can do just eke out that little bit more damage? We can see that SB still has a card yet to use. So Felipe, while he's cycling these poisons, you know, hasn't actually worked out for him because he is now a good 700 damage behind.
Yeah, I mean, it's a considerable amount. Felipe's going to have to sort of have something land because the miner just not really in rotation enough. As I say, it will go out on the left, but myself, the poison is again defense. There's no cards backing that miner up. And I mean, look at the miner in the back here. Felipe isn't just not countering these miners with specific cards. He's just hoping the poison gets it. We've got 2 mortars down for SB right now. Felipe just not having anything connect whatsoever.
I really feel like the big difference here is, yeah, he's just not trying to even defend those miners. He's trying to essentially, you know, out-damage him, and he's not getting even close to it. You can see finally chucking down a cannon card here to try and maybe take the aggro of that miner, but almost every single miner that SB put down did the full amount of damage onto the tower before being taken down, and that's just, yeah, I don't see how you can win a game like that.
Yeah, I mean, having no counter Felipe coming through the upper bracket, one of our best looking players so far for stage 2. Big mistakes. I mean, not something that we would be expecting. I mean, even statistically speaking, on the majority of times, those miners just allowed to continue going through and hitting. I mean, very similar decks, very similar costs, cycle, and the average elixir. But Felipe arguably just so many more mistakes that should not be being made in a miner completely unchecked in the back runs. You don't let that happen.
Yeah, I suppose it could have just been an issue with Felipe's cycle where he felt like he didn't have, you know, a card, some way to deal with that effectively, and he read the best option as essentially just, you know, the best defense is offense in this case. But it proved that definitely wasn't the way to win game 1.
Yeah, I mean, if you're caught on the off cycle as well, which he definitely seemed like he was, he didn't have the pairing of the cards. I mean, by the time that he got the poison, into his hand, the miner had already been used. The poison then needed to be used for defense because he didn't have an defensive card there, as opposed to the poison being in its place because he had the off cycle. I mean, he wasn't necessarily in a comfortable hand position, I would assume, given that's why we saw the miner go unchecked multiple times by Felipe, because had he had a better cycle, I mean, I'd imagine we would have seen that miner getting face checked by the Archer Queen, maybe Fire Spirit, just something there to do some damage before that miner could sort of go to town, because the time it connected for, well, more than half on majority of occasions.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was almost the full complement, honestly, most times, and that's yeah, you just don't see that very often in pro Clash,
No, you
honestly. You know, it's usually you always play something in response to it, and it's a bit of a gamble whether you know guess correctly on which side of the tower they're playing it on. You know, obviously you have some you know idea, right? Like you rarely see it played on the side where it's going to be taking damage from both princess towers, so that kind of cuts down your options a little bit. But beyond that, it really is a little bit of a gamble. And yeah, I don't know, Felipe just not playing that game, and unfortunately, that's left him at a deficit as we get into game 2 here.
Yeah, well, look, Felipe now down. SB looking good with that extra point to his name. So coming forward, I mean, SB, he's already taken down 2 big names. We talked about at the start. A princess, though, a card that we have not seen at all, I would argue, Gino, really.
Yeah, I think there's been maybe like a handful of log bait decks that we've seen where the princess has been played. But yeah, you're right. It's been very rare. Oh no! And it even gets shoved in by the brute of a Skeleton King. And that's actually quite unlucky.
Yeah, definitely shaping up to be a bit of a P.E.K.K.A bridge spam, I would imagine, for Felipe, given it could be the Royal Giant, albeit SB definitely looking for more of that sort of bridge spam style with the Skeleton King, maybe the Graveyard in tow. So it could even be the Hog Rider, we don't know. But yeah, right now, Felipe, again, once more, taking that early damage in its strides, I guess. Ooh.
Yeah, so it definitely is some log bait here with, you know, the Dark Goblin coming out. Ooh, we see a mirrored Skarmy, and oh, he's got
big value.
Yeah, that was a nice tornado there in the end to essentially deal with both of them. But that said, still managing to pile damage onto this left-hand side here. SB is in a good place to go undefeated into this winners bracket, or the grand final, I should say.
Yeah, look, provided those E-Giants don't get as close as that one did. Yes, it was a low HP, but if that had been any higher than it was, that could have been a very scary prospect for SB to deal with. All the same, though, Felipe, again, just making those mistakes, conceding that early damage on multiple fronts.
This is probably what you would have expected, right? I mean, wow, using the Electro Giant there actually to be the defense against the Goblin Barrel is an interesting option. You know, most of the times you're going to see them try and mirror that Goblin Barrel. That's usually, you know, what you've got that in the deck for. Okay, do you see the Tornado on top of the E-Giant? Just try and make it get to the tower. Does manage to zap the tower once. Next Goblin Barrel comes through. Only, I think, maybe 1 or 2 hits there from the Goblin coming through, so that's not too bad at all. Darkprint on the back of this Electro Giant could be big if he tries to use Skarmy again. That is going to soak up some of that damage. There you see heaps of it going the way of the Dark Prince, and he's got quite the supporting crew here.
Yeah, 2 Dark Princes and the Inferno Dragon. None have yet to connect, but the full Dark Prince, no, not going to get in. The Royal Delivery tanking that one, keeping SB in it just for that little bit more, but this constant cycle of the E-Giant making things difficult for SB to deal with right now because he constantly has to commit to the defense, meaning his offense is lacking at the moment.
Oh, the Bomber unfortunately can't get that one hit off that might have saved the Electro Giant, or at least, you know, got it in a position to do some damage with 323 health left. Can he do enough to clean up these Goblins? They get 2 hits. The second Goblin Barrel comes in, and wow, he actually manages. No! There is no way SB has just won that. Somehow, all of the units.
Felipe
won. There's no way Felipe won that. Oh, man, just managing to draw the aggro of all 3 of the second Goblin Barrel. I mean, when you play that deck, right, you're playing Log Bait, you've got the Mirror and the Goblin Barrel coming together. That second Goblin Barrel is usually doing, like, so much damage. So the fact that he managed to get, you know, to play it perfectly and then somehow just have the Inferno Dragon lock on and do the rest of the damage, wow. I mean, Felipe, that is quite a win.
that was a 3-card drop defense. It was Skeleton's Bomber and the Dark Prince. I mean, there was nothing more that he could have thrown at that second Goblin Barrel.
Wow.
So connected. I mean, at that point, next because dedicated enough, but that was close again. That Inferno Dragon absolutely massive for Felipe, but arguably, I mean, a match that SB probably should have won. I mean, in that matchup, that definitely looked a lot more one-sided than I think it was if we were it.
Yeah, I mean, just yeah, honestly in awe of him. I wonder if he set it up with that in mind. Like, was he playing the cards further back, you know, near the King Tower there, you know, with keeping that second Goblin Barrel in mind to try and draw the units back to it afterwards? Because I really have to, you know, take my hat off to him if that was the case.
Yeah, definitely trying to bleed a little bit of extra time, a little bit of extra defense, it seemed, because he knew that those Goblin Barrels were coming. So, I mean, you look at the constant cycle for SB, a lot cheaper, but Felipe managing to walk away with it regardless. I mean, yes, a little bit sloppy at the start, but to close the fashion, a lot of luck, but also a lot of skill. You do have to sort of recognize that.
Well, I don't think anyone is doubting the skill of these two players that have made it to the top of our winners bracket here. Felipe just hanging on by the slimmest of margins here in this series, but that's all he needed to do. Now I've got to see what they come up with in their third decks for this final game of this best of three.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting builds, I'd imagine, Gino. I mean, we've got a lot left to desire. We've got Hog Riders. We've got a lot really available. So, I mean, there is plenty to play with coming into this third map.
Yeah, I feel like definitely would expect some defensive buildings there because we haven't seen a Hog EQ from, you know, sort of set up from either of these players. And to my mind, that has been one of the more successful builds that we've seen run so far.
Yeah, it definitely does seem to be that way. I mean, the Hog EQ has been huge, so could see it from both sides. I mean, Felipe likes that sort of fast-paced action. We do see it from SB a little bit too, but he's sort of SB the giant killer, I guess. He's taken down sort of players that favor that style a lot. So coming into this, Felipe, I mean, you got to pick your sort of hand here relatively carefully because SB seemed to be pretty formidable in the last two play days.
Yeah, he's had a fantastic run so far, hasn't he? And you know, you got to remember these are. I mean, we'll have to see because one of them will get knocked down and they'll have to play that losers bracket final. But you know, it could very well be our top two players of the entire tournament. Impressive stuff by them at the very least. I think they've you know, guaranteed themselves something like a grand. They're going to be in the top couple of places in the standings. And okay, we've got some wall breakers split to start off with from SB, and it's a double hit.
Both to land. That is massive for SB. But yeah, the winner of this locks themselves in for that top sort of grand final. So a lot on the line for both of these players. Skeletons will be used to draw the guard, the knight in the back, the card that we do see sometimes, but not a lot of.
Well, it's going to come out just in time to deal with that first goblin and have some effect against this goblin drill. Solid by them so far. Skelly Barrel coming in. Oh man, unfortunately, was hoping that snowball would push the firecracker there just in range of the Dark Goblin, but doesn't quite manage to get that far.
An attempt to help the Skeleton Barrel get close, but not unfortunately close enough. Inferno Tower draws the aggro. Skeleton's cleaned up the Goblin Barrel there, so could be sort of a bait with a mirror. That could be the final card for Felipe, given that he does have the snowball. But I mean, arrows maybe as well in the mix-up. Both players a little bit more of a cycle build in this last sort of matchup. And yeah, poison for SB. I would expect a poison from Felipe here too, possibly, but fireball maybe even. I don't know. It's an interesting build with a possible interesting final card.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Lemons play a deck that was kind of a bit like this, right? Where you pair up the Goblin Barrel and the Skeleton Barrel. And you can see here, just using the tank of the Knight, that's going to get some good damage done here onto the right tower. Incredible work by Felipe. After a slow start to the series, now starting to come into his own.
Yeah, great damage there. The Goblin Barrel in tow once more, and Snowball placed perfectly, but unfortunately no damage from the Goblins dealt. I think SB's got the defense of that one down to a T at the moment, or at least he's figured out a good way to counter it so far.
Every time this the Dark Goblin is played all the way at the back of the King Tower, he's struggling. He's just getting the poison cycle onto the tower. That's kind of how SB's eking his way back into this. Here we go. We do finally get a hit from one of those Goblin Barrel Goblins there. He's been doing well with the Snowball and the Inferno Tower combo to try and deal with this. Obviously, the Inferno Tower, usually you're seeing that to deal with big units, but this time he's making use of it because there are none of those on the side of Felipe.
Yeah, no, none at all. Snowball used to great effect to push the Knight back. Big damage from the Goblins, but the Goblin Barrel to return the Valkyrie there to clean things up. But, I mean, look at the damage being dealt by the Dark Goblin as well. A lot connecting right now, Gino.
Yeah, both players doing well just in that last little section of play there. Unfortunately, the Dark Goblin got the aggro just a little bit too fast in that right side tower. Otherwise, it might have been game over. Once again, pushing the defensive units out of the way so that these Goblins from the drill can do fantastic work. And with that poison coming down, I think SB, you can see, raises the fist in triumph. SB has guaranteed himself a second place and a berth in our grand final here today.
What an amazing performance. We said it, SB, the Giant Killer, finds himself the first spot secured in the grand final in pretty spectacular fashion. He has taken down some of the biggest names that we've had in this tournament so far. Felipe, default save, now locking himself in for that minimum second place finish. An insane set of plays from him so far, and a great deck to round that match out.
Yeah, I mean, the question's got to be whether he's the Giant Killer or he is himself the Giant now, Proto. I mean, you know, he's made it all the way. You know, it wasn't through the losers bracket or anything.
Yeah.
You know, he was the one stomping on people. So why don't we just refresh our memories with how he managed to get through there in our three decks here.
Yeah, definitely an interesting one to start it off, the double mortar, but coming out on top, obviously SB looked good from the get-go. Felipe, with a similar build, just couldn't have the same success.
And yeah, look, moving throughout that series, we had that minor versus minor matchup, right? And this one was a little bit more in favor of Felipe. I believe it was the second match who managed to take that out.
Yeah, Felipe was match 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then going into match 3, SB, as we all know, locked it in. I mean, the wall breakers from the get splitting down, finding both of their barrels onto the towers.
Yeah.
I think a little bit telling of how that one was going to pan out there, unfortunately, for Felipe. No real tank cards, but at the same time, no real direct damage dealers. I mean, other than the Dark Goblin from range, the Knight's really the only micro tank, and other than that, there isn't really heavy hitting cards in that deck other than the Goblin Barrel in terms of tower damage. It was really, I think, minimizing in the way that he was sort of able to play that deck, because it was very good on defense, yes, but offensively, we just didn't see it shine at all, and that's where SB came on through and just made it his own.
Well, I mean, somehow SB was coming out on top in these trades, right, by playing that Inferno Tower against, you know, Goblin Barrels and Skelly Barrels, which is just like the opposite of what it's made to do. So, yeah, look, incredible defense by SB, and I think he really deserves that series win. All right, guys, that's 4 of our 6 games done for tonight. We're going to see we're going to see the last two come up after this short break. Please stick with us for the conclusion of this tournament and to see who walks away with $3,000.
My world is my storytelling.
My world is diverse.
Our world.
My world is astrophysics. It's always been a dream of mine.
I don't know what my career pathway will be.
I approach architecture from the point of view of my culture.
I want to contribute to my people.
It's a way I can give back.
I want to change the perception of engineers.
I want to take my tohu home when I graduate.
Right now, it's about me.
And this is my chapter.
Okay, guys, we are getting to the conclusion of this, the UOA LPL Pro Clash Cup for ANZ in Season 1. We've come a long way tonight. We've just seen SB go through to the grand final there, Proto.
Yeah, he's done really, really well to lock himself in for that first spot. So to see whether or not he can sort of lock the game out overall, the tournament in his coming games. But we still have a few more ahead of us, Chino.
Yeah, we do. And look, if you want to lock in some great gameplay, got to give another shout out there to Roccat. And if you're looking for a new mouse, the Roccat Burst Pro Air is a lightweight optical wireless RGB gaming mouse. That's available now. Pop on and look out for it, right? So the other thing we need to announce tonight is the MVP for our tournament, and I don't think it's going to be any surprise that it is SB himself, as voted by everyone, the production crew, us here on the casting desk as well. He's been just a phenomenal player throughout the tournament. Any further thoughts on him there, Proto?
Oh, I mean, taking down massive names is respectful in itself. So even if he walks away with the win, obviously he's got this to look forward to as well. So, really well done from him.
Nice little sweetener for him as he's chasing that grand prize of $3,000. That is still up for grabs. But what we've got coming up next is, who will be deciding whether they get, second, third, or move on into that final matchup. So Felipe just managed to win one game, just barely, against SB. He needs to do better than that to take down Fitchy, who's coming up next. And as we remember, he was the #1 seed going into this. A lot of hopes and dreams on the back of Fitchy there. We need him to do even better than that if he wants to move on to that final matchup.
I mean, even looking at the seed so far, Genome, I don't even think we can really refer to that anymore on a win percentage side of things, because the meta did so much from the start of the tournament. I mean, from Playday #1, let's remember all the way back, it was Skeleton King Graveyard all the way. And now it is E-Giant, it's Hog EQ, it's E-Golem decks that have their one night sort of stands and then disappear forever again. We haven't seen them at all. So I don't even know if we could say that Seed 1 is telling of this story, but Fitchy has already had a really good night tonight. Felipe, the one game he's played, he hasn't unfortunately won it. So coming into this, Fitchy's mentality, probably a little bit better on the end of mentals, but Felipe, given that he stayed in that upper bracket for the extended period, could be telling.
Yeah, well, Felipe's got over his nerves. You can see he's finally allowed us to check out how he's looking and feeling as we play this losers bracket final match here. Both players strapped in, you can see, concentrating. Fitchy always seems to be calculating something in his head. I love how he sort of talks himself through these games and starts thinking about what could be next. Felipe just chewing on his shirt there.
He's sorting out stuff. He's sending emails right now on his computer. Fitchy, I think Fitchy might be like talking to the homies in Discord or something. But either way, both players just waiting. I mean, Felipe, he's just sending emails, checking eBay, something like that. But here we go. Fitchy to kick things off. Felipe to counter. We finally get things ready for our third place matchup.
All right. What are the options going to be? Skeleton Dragon on the left-hand side does get one hit. Now we're going to play a Royal Giant. That's the first appearance for tonight. Defensive Miner is going to come in here. Seeing everything getting thrown at this, really doesn't want too much damage coming down from Felipe there on that side. And these units aren't really going to be able to take much. Oh no! We've got the Mother Witch coming out on the other side, which is just perfect when you've got those low health units ready to get taken down.
Yeah, I mean, with the Zap Arrows combo to get rid of the Mother Witch, the Fisherman locks on for one as well. Felipe definitely happy with that trade. A little bit confused as to what happened there, but still, Fitchy, I mean, he comes out with some good damage on those zappies. Felipe now with the counter on the right side. A defensive Miner. Fitchy not able to get this card to connect.
He's really just having to rely on that for the defense, and it might just be a cycle thing as well, because honestly, I feel like if he had the Barbarians to use earlier there, he probably would have just been happy to throw them out to distract that giant skeleton, right? Every time we've got this Royal Giant coming out, he's trying to use that Inferno Dragon to connect with it, but the Fireball, the reset just means it's getting one, maybe even two extra pumps in there. Okay, finally, we see the heart of Fitchy's deck come out. It is Lava Loon, but we're only seeing it, you know, this late in the game. Of course, the balloon, it only needs a couple of connections to do its damage. You could say the same of the Royal Giant in this space, though, and with 2 seconds left, we do get both Princess Towers going down, and Fitchy breathes a sigh of relief.
He was definitely clenching there, but as another Lava Hound is dropped onto the field by Felipe, he's definitely dictating the pace of this one right now. He's got the pressure on the side of the left of the board with the balloon to come to. Fitchy, not really a lot in terms of an offense. Sorry, Fitchy with the big offense. Felipe,
oh my God,
defense. Look at the Queen.
Look at this.
The King Tower, though.
Fitchy is just throwing everything at it, even allowing the Skeleton Giant to drop his bomb on the tower, but it's defended this all somehow. There's a couple of 100 health points left on both towers. Fitchy knows he can get through this. He's going to start it off with the Miner. A correct prediction means the Miner doesn't get any damage done. Felipe, he thought maybe that Skeleton Giant could get on there in time, but just fails to get that bomb down. That was such a close matchup.
For third place, I mean, sheesh, what a way to start it off. 300 health left on the Queen Tower. I mean, imagine if Fitchy had had a Fireball or a Poison or something like that. That could have quite easily been a 3-crown, but looking at how that one panned out, it was just an interesting bout from the get-go. Felipe, slightly less expensive than Fitchy, but I mean, that was so close to being a 3-crown.
I mean, that's the highest, that's like one of the highest damage totals we've ever seen, right? Especially you know, without getting all the way through. So yeah, 10,000 damage. Fitchy was everywhere, just pushing Felipe's buttons there. It was, I mean, it was so close, right? Like literally it was the last 2 or 3 seconds of, you know, regulation time that those players both managed to get through, and that's, you know, the balloon, it got tanked for so well, got the full hits off on that tower to pull through, and but yeah, look, in the end, you know, the spread of damage across, you know, both towers just seemed to really be too much for Felipe to handle.
Yeah, it didn't really have a multi-pronged defense. Ultimately, though, Fitchy, you do have to be happy with those. I mean, having the death damage of all things to close it out. I mean, the balloon didn't even need to connect. The Fireball even pushed it back and almost took it out of range, but it just got forward that 1/2 a tile just to get that damage on. Felipe thought, oh, am I safe? I might be safe, but no. Not safe whatsoever. Fitchy, in spectacular fashion, in overtime, might I add, finds that extra crown for 2 to lock in map number 1 for himself. So going forward into map number 2, I mean, Genome, anything is afoot here, especially now with Fitchy in the lead.
Yeah, I mean, you got to cast your mind back. Fitchy is here on a technicality, right? I mean, you know, he lost a series 2-1, essentially, and then just, you know, by... poor planning by Zoldino, unfortunately. You know, double using the poison means he gets knocked out on a DQ, and Fitchy goes ahead. So, I mean, if he was to come through here to pull through to make it to the grand final, it'd be an incredible story.
What a run. I mean, what a run to be thwarted and then go through on a technicality and then win it. I mean, come on. What a story. I mean, that would be the ultimate battle there. From rags to riches, you were gone, but then you came back and made the best of it. Even if he doesn't find the MVP here, which SB has locked in, even if he finds second Genome.
Oh, it's such a big difference, right? Because like, you know, he would you go from something like, I think it's like $400 to like $1,400 or something in terms of the prize money you're grabbing there. It's a huge difference. So, all right. I'm going to move into game 2. Felipe has a hog starting out in his hand. That's always a good thing to test your opponent with. Almost gets the second hit. Fitchy, what can he do with this Archer Queen?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot available for both.
Nice.
Hog cycle for Felipe, but a great snowball. And ultimately, Valkyrie to allow the Hog to calm. There you go. Fitchy has to play defense once more, but Valkyrie of his own. Some good damage from the Hog, though. 2 swings. Can he get a third? No. Zappy's slowing that one down.
I mean, yeah, look, we're not even a minute into the game yet, and we've already got 3 or 4 hits on from that Hog. So Felipe doing very well so far. I mean, I suppose that, you know, single elixir time is probably where the Hog shines the most, so it makes a little bit of sense, but he does need to push the advantage while he's got it. The drill is coming through here. Felipe, you can see, trying to work out what is on the other side of this deck, what else, you know, maybe Fitchy could be throwing at him.
Yeah, with the Hog, I mean, it's relatively good, but a mortar, good for 1. Fitchy happy with that. Felipe not necessarily as impressed. Head in hands, you can see the stress is real right now. This is the difference between second and third, or even first, with a possibility. But yeah, Fitchy has 1 card still left hidden, probably another spell. Could be sort of maybe like a cycle troop, but there you go, Felipe's full deck revealed, and there it is. It's the poison, as expected, that extra spell. Fitchy now on the defense side once more.
Yeah, Valkyrie makes its way back, and a nice combination of Zappies and Log there does manage to push back and prevent that Hog from getting any more swings onto the tower. It's a second matchup here. You gotta remember, Fitchy is already 1 up. Looking to push this out and just take it out in a clean 2-0 here, but Felipe with that Hog EQ, we talked about how effective a deck this is.
Yeah, and I mean, the amount of damage that it's been doing single-handedly has been massive, but the mortar not connecting, unfortunately, and it is going to be the Goblin Drill, actually, to get close and get some good damage in 2 hits even before being taken down. The Archer Queen, unfortunately, not as lucky. Felipe just bleeding this damage. Fitchy finding such a great advantage going into overtime here with constant pressure. It's an attempt at the right lane now for Felipe, but is it too late? Has it been called too late? Because the damage dealt on the left is too severe.
Yeah, you can see, I guess Felipe is just, you know, he thinks he can't play it straight up, right? He needs to change the lane, needs to change, you know, where this is going, but...
Queen.
Okay, the Mortar is used to tank there, allowing this Valkyrie to go to town on his right side, but he has to sacrifice that to try and make the difference now with 500 left. Okay, the Valkyrie does pull. Valkyrie, definitely the best counter to that Goblin Drill when you can get it out. But unfortunately, with the Zappies and the Mortar to defend against this Hog, it's just too hard for Felipe. I don't see a way to victory here.
I don't see one at all, unfortunately, Genome, as the Mortar slowly begins to set its sights towards the tower. No, the Hog to pull once more, but the Goblin Drill used as a defensive tower. The damage slowly disappearing. Felipe knows that he is not long for this matchup. Fitchy, he needs 200 damage more of poison, and a Log will do it. 60 seconds remain, triple elixir. There's the Log. Where's the poison? It's on the way. Felipe just can't lock it out here. And there you go, Fitchy to lock in that grand finals position.
And the last Log will actually finish it off. Who knows which one of the spells was there. But either way, Fitchy in a 2-0 is going to take down Felipe, who, look, we gave him so much praise at the start of the night, Proto, but he's kind of gone out in straight sets here from that winner's bracket position. I mean, look, he's still coming away in 3rd position here in the tournament, so that's massive, right? I think that's still over $1,000 in prize money. But for Fitchy, it was an incredibly deadly series from him there. 10k damage in that first match and then 5k in the second has put him into the grand final.
Locking in that top spot, Genome. Fitchy off the back of an unfortunate start to the evening. Definitely happy with where he finds himself currently in the grand final, regardless. Looking at a great chunk of money from that prize pool. But I mean, even just the way he was building his decks in that matchup, 2-0, one of the first we've seen for the evening, an absolutely solid performance from him, ultimately bringing the Lava Hound and the Loon, something that we haven't seen from him before.
Yeah, and you know, when you play these decks, we've seen that a couple times this night, that you know, they want to play roughly 4 air units. This time he opts for the Inferno Dragon, and that really helps him out against the chunky units that Felipe was bringing out there in deck 1.
I mean, again, not too much air defense, but going into number 2, Felipe did have some good sort of cards available. He had the midi tank of the Valk, he had the damage dealers from the Musketeer, he had the tower as well, and it just didn't matter. Fitchy had so much of a better cycle, constant damage from the poison and the log, constant value from the goblin drill. I mean, even using it on defense, the interchangeability. He had 2 tower cards to stop that Hog Rider connecting, and did so perfectly on pretty much every occasion that the Hog was played, just completely closing Felipe out and giving him no hope at locking in that grand final spot. Fitchy, I mean, we had some doubts, but from week 1, we sort of had him pegged to make it into the grand final, and here he is going up against SB. I mean, what a way for this to come to a culmination.
It's our final match of the night, ladies and gentlemen. We've got Fitchy versus SB in a showdown to take it all. It's been a fantastic tournament by SB. He's already walked away with the MVP award, and Fitchy, essentially from beyond the grave, is coming to try and take down this tournament and take down the number 1 position, maybe even retaining that number 1 seed that he brought through from the qualification stage. As you said, at this point, you know, we've had a lot of matches played between these pros, and you know, maybe that doesn't mean so much anymore. But look, guys, why don't we have a look at one more gamer setup here before we get into that, you know, that final game. And it's not too late for you guys to be walking away with something either. Grab that Nano Leaf kit here and spruce up your home setup. Here you can see Disco. Good on him for watching the game.
Hey, that's us.
That's me.
Hey,
that's you.
That's us. That's me.
That's happening. What else would you be doing tonight?
Mum, we're
apart
famous.
From
we're
watching,
on the TV.
Apart from watching the Clash Royale here and the exciting finale. It's going to be awesome here. Fitchy, he's been playing very well. You know, what do you think about the decks that he's brought out tonight, and what do you think we might see, you know, coming out here, Proto?
He's had a lot of interesting choices for the games this evening, and yes, we haven't seen too many of the E-Giant picks from him, but this is the grand final. I mean, if it doesn't come, I wouldn't be surprised if it does make its way once more.
Yeah, you know, I think we'd have to be expecting that, right? And I imagine SB, who, look, I've seen him in the Twitch chat, so he's definitely, you know, he's definitely out there watching and planning. But we're going to give them just a tad more time to prepare for this. We're going to go to a very short break, guys. But on the other side of that is going to be the last series to determine the winner of this tournament. Stay with us.
My world is my storytelling.
My world is diverse.
Our world.
My world is astrophysics. It's always been a dream of mine.
I don't know what my career pathway will be.
I approach architecture from the point of view of my culture.
I want to contribute to my people.
It's a way I can give back.
I want to change the perception of engineers.
I want to take my tohu home when I graduate.
Right now, it's about me.
And this is my chapter.
Without any further ado, we have got the final match, the grand final of our UAA LPL Pro Clash Cup ANZ Season 1. It's SB and it's Fitchy.
I think we could have picked it. I mean, from day number one, we always had Fitchy chosen to be up here in the grand final. We talked about it, Genome, on multiple occasions, but now it's a reality. It's actually happened. We're here for the grand final. SB looking to try and slay the last giant in his way to take that first place. He's taken so many big players down so far, but can he do one more? He's got just a little bit left to go before he locks in that top place. This is it. This is the culmination of everything. The grand final, SB versus Fitchy.
One last best of 3. It's the same format as everything else you've seen so far in this tournament. But which decks will they choose? What's been working for them? Can they counterpick? Can they predict what the other player is going to bring out? So many questions yet to be answered. The Dark Goblin is coming out early and doing very well here for Fitchy. Nice bar barrel there, actually, to take it down. It's one of the few differences between log and bar barrel. Can't clear out that Dart Goblin.
Yeah, no, can't quite. Does rely on sort of having that connection from the Barbarian to finish things off. But the Cannon Cart will get rid of the Queen. So SB comes out on top with just that little bit damage on the left side. Fitchy now shows the minor, so possible minor poison, maybe with a graveyard in the mix, given that the king is in play here for Fitchy. But yeah, SB with that giant skeleton could be the Royal Giant pick, especially with the Fisherman in tow. So big decks here for match number 1.
Another response here from Fitchy. He's going to bring out pretty much the same push as last time. Does that mean the Soul Summon comes out, has got not really a lot to work with here? That means you're not getting massive value out of that, right? I mean, it can be up to 18 skeletons, and he's getting, what, maybe 8 out of it? Something like that to start with. That said, it does give enough time for that Dart Goblin to go to work. It's such a high DPS unit for something that only costs 3 elixir.
Yeah, it is massive, and unfortunately, look, it's shut down all the same, but cards start to fly here. Fitchy does have some good sort of build-up on this left side, but SB on this defense has been absolutely amazing so far, just shutting down this left lane repeatedly on great effect.
Yeah, he's doing that, and he's splitting the zappies afterwards every time. So he's getting almost like some guaranteed hits in there. Proto hits the nail on the head there. It is, in fact, a Royal Giant that's going to come out, but he's got the Mortar in his back pocket as well. That means the Royal Giant shuffling from one building to another, not able to lock onto the Princess Tower. This time, Dark Goblin actually gets onto the Fisherman. So with the help of some arrows, is going to get one dart onto the tower. We are now into overtime, and these players have played this so flawlessly so far that they barely even touch the towers.
It's the grand final. What do you expect, Genome? This is the culmination of it all. This is where all the practice comes into effect. SB has the lead very slightly on that right side, but is not choosing to aggress it. Fitchy there to meet the left. Will build the Royal Giant up in the back here. The Mortar on the right, though, an interesting choice. The bats to cover will mean that some damage may be dealt here, provided cards start to drop. The Zappies come to counter. The Royal Giant actually dragged by the Cannon Cart momentarily, but this is where Fitchy's going to have an insane defense, because SB is now barreling down this left lane.
He's trying to get some work done with his Skarmy, but every time he pulls it out, the Barbarian barrel is coming through and just demolishing it. Finally, SB starting to get some hits with this Royal Giant, and he's made significant inroads here, down to 1,200 now from Fitchy. That's the first real chink in the armor that we've seen from either of those players in this first game.
big from SB. He has 50 seconds remaining to hold on to that lead, though, as the Mortar will take aggression. The Skeleton King become the Miner with no great effect as the Archer Queen's there to meet the Fisherman to drag as well. I mean, SB, this defense impeccable once more as the Skeleton Giants start to stack on the left side. Fitchy just cannot make a dent in this defense whatsoever, with the Earthquake as well to further the lead. SB to lock it out, I'd imagine, here with no real issues.
A defensive Royal Giant almost there, just to get work done on that. Mortar doesn't even care if it doesn't cross the bridge, because at this point, with 15 seconds left, SB has the lead. And Fitchy, I mean, how is he going to get through that? He's got a Miner, a Mortar, that, you know, that's not going to push through and do that damage in 5 seconds. So SB walks away with the first victory of our grand final.
Keep in mind as well, this is the 13th seeded player from the qualifiers, all the way through to the grand final, Genome, doing work like this. Fitchy, the first rated seed out of the qualifiers, the best player out of 236, currently down 1-0 in the grand finals to the 13th rated player. Fitchy's going to have to come out of the woodwork here with something big, because that map for him, not the greatest.
Yeah, it feels like it's almost been a lifetime since that qualifying stage and the finals that we're in here. You can see there SB having a fantastic game with that Royal Giant. It was really, you know, just being able to push through and punish. You know, we talked about, you know, in one of the other games having that sort of double building setup, right, where you've got you know, this time it's kind of like that, where you've got the cannon cart in addition to the mortar. And at the start of the game, he was using those successfully to try and push, you know, the cannonballs over. But eventually, he does manage to break through, and that one passage of play honestly was enough to get SB over the line.
He sort of caught Fitchy in the off cycle. I mean, having both of those towers down elsewhere, the cannon cart, I believe, was down and out for the count in the 4 card. The mortar had just been sort of destroyed and dealt with elsewhere as well. So that Royal Giant really did just have an open avenue, nothing there to stop it. The Skami that came thwarted by the Barbarian Barrel, cleaned up by the Jonathan. It was just perfect. Pixel perfect, card perfect, the selection was great, the time was there, and the count was on for SB. It was read like a book, and Fitchy, unfortunately, you just can't be making those mistakes in the grand final. I mean, this is the penultimate of everything. This is where you need to be playing your best Clash Royale, and unfortunately for him, too many mistakes were made in that matchup.
All right, he's got one more chance. He's got one more chance to keep this series going. You know, it's one of the differences with the dual format, I guess, Proto. Like, obviously in a lot of games, you might see an extended series when you get to a grand final or something like that. But of course, with the dual format, because you can't reuse cards, you know, we can't just kind of keep the series going on forever, or we're going to see, I don't know, what's a card we actually haven't seen this entire tournament? I'm trying to think.
That's actually a really good question.
We've seen a lot. We've seen a lot of variety.
We've seen a lot of interesting cards. Yeah, we have.
Will we see something else fun come out here? I wouldn't think so, because Fitchy's got his back against the line and there's like $1,500 on the line. You know, back against the wall, I should say. They have to come up with something here. Fitchy talking himself through it again. Hopefully, he's got the answers to bring this back and make it a game 3 against SB.
Dark Goblins Genome is a card that we haven't seen, used in their sort of single card form. So I'll leave that where it is. But SB, the Lava Hound, the big hitter, a card that has been doing an insane amount of work on its lonesome tonight, not even paired with the Loon. Fitchy on that Golden Knight dash once more. Nice. He's going to connect. Good for 2, good for 3, good for 4, 5, maybe even 7, 6. No, the 7's not there, but the damage dealt early. It's going to be great footing for him.
Oh no, and Fitchy on the back end is having to play a cannon, which doesn't do anything. It doesn't even pull the Mega Minion. It doesn't pull the Lava Hound. He's placed it too far. This is tragic.
Yeah, he has, and that Lava Hound is going to be able to catch up a lot of the damage dealt, but it's going to be the Mirror Electro Giant to deal with the Pups and the Bone Dragons. Look at it all just disappear, and the Bomber as well. What a read from Fitchy. The Barbarians disappear as if they were never there. SB now needs to do something to stop this Electro Giant, but it's going to get one onto the tower. A punch and 3 zaps. That is insane. Fitchy, what great value.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe I can't think that was an intentional cannon, but in the end, the mirrored Electro Giant just does so much damage with its zaps that it's an effective air counter. It's kind of bizarre to think of it like that, right?
Yeah.
But that is how that worked. Now, okay, we've got Fitchy actually deciding to play the right lane, and we see both Electro Giants coming out. So both teams playing this now. We've got the Bomber off the back of the Electro Giant. Obviously, that pairs really well, especially, I'd say even better with the level 13 Electro Giant, because then we get the, 2 zaps plus a bomb will deal with those Barbarians. Once again, the Tornado is coming through, pulls the balloon to the King Tower.
Electro Giant connects on the right though, big damage dealt, not enough to take the tower unfortunately, but still massive amounts of damage. I mean, SB within a sliver of being defeated on both sides. Fitchy now needs to find a big offensive here to lock it out, because this balloon coming down, I mean, is it going to be enough? The Tornado's available. Unfortunately, it's going to be there for Fitchy.
A last-ditch effort to try and draw the Electro Giant away with the Tombstone there isn't enough, and Fitchy, well, there's his ace in the hole. It's the Electro Giant deck for Fitchy. It's been incredible, impassable for him the entire tournament, and SB is no match for it, but he can't use it again. That's a strategy that's not available for him for Game 3, Proto.
Yeah, look, given that is his best pick, I mean, we look at it here once more. It was an insane build, and throughout this whole tournament, it has been undefeated. We look at how it's built. I mean, it is cheap. The 4-card cycle is insane with an Electro Giant and a Mirror. I mean, no surprise that he walks away with that one. But going into game number 3 now, I mean, that only really leaves him with a couple of choices that he has proven to be sort of good with. I mean, he's got the P.E.K.K.A bridge spam left. He does have the Goblin Drill, but that is really all the choices that we've seen from him left up open for play.
Yeah, I mean, just having a 7 Elixir 4-card cycle on a deck where
With an
you're
Electro
pumping
Giant.
out, yeah, exactly. You know, these 7 Elixir Electro Giant, it just makes it such a potent force, and you can see why there. Almost confirming 1 tower kill, enables him to switch lanes and then try that again. It's an awesome deck, and I'm sure he's kind of a bit mad at the dual format right now, because he's like, why can't I just run this every time?
If he would, I definitely think we could have seen a lot of his games go in very quick successions. But in saying that, that means that everyone else would get to use their best decks, and then that would open up a whole different can of worms, Genome. But given that this is the format that it is, it's the duels format, we're not going to get a repeat here. So it's going to open up the back door for SB to maybe make an interesting play, definitely a multiple archetype player, someone who is very prominent with pretty much any style you put in front of him. He can play that tank style. He can play the bridge spam. He can play the cycle in really good form across multiple styles. So having that sort of flex play available to yourself as a skill set is insane, and that's why ultimately he's found himself in the position that he does here in the grand final.
Yeah, especially when you get to that 3rd game of a series, you've been able to work out what might be coming based on what cards the other players already used, and then rather than sort of just having to work with what's left, you can be confident in whatever you're bringing out in that 3rd game to try and counter the opponent as best you can. Well, we're tied up at 1-1 here. Fitchy, we knew that he was going to be fantastic with the Electro Giant deck, but he needs to be better than that. He needs to win with something else to walk away as the victor here in our final series of the tournament.
It's come down to this. This is the final match. There's nothing more after this, Gino. No second chances, no lower bracket. This is where it ends. One of these players will walk away $3,000 richer, and the other, well, not $3,000 just quite, but still a good amount of money at the end of the day, albeit the bragging rights. I mean, just the bragging rights alone. It is an insane tournament to win, and let alone, you know, the money aside, both players looking to lock it out in spectacular fashion, because this is as close as it could have been. I mean, 1-1, the final match, nothing else available here in terms of redos. I mean, unless we see a card rebeat from SB, which we saw earlier from a certain somebody, but I doubt we see that. And even if we did, I don't think it'd be a replay.
Yeah, no, hopefully players have learnt their lessons from Zulnino, who's going to be kicking himself. But look, I guess the players are taking their time here just to make sure that this last match, it is exactly, it's exactly the deck they need, the deck they want to bring out. Considering what they've used so far, does that give us any clues about what we could expect? Have we seen Hog from either player so far, Proto?
I believe one, possibly. Either or.
Okay.
Pekka Bridge Spam still available on both ends. Definitely a very strong sort of deck, but either way, a lot to come.
All right. Well, those questions will be answered here momentarily. Logbait, Goblin Barrel, Skelly Barrel, Hogs, Miners, who knows? The win conditions will be revealed very soon. SB, he used the Lava Hound in the last game, and in game 3, it's going to be Fitchy rocking that. He's going to be going up against a chip deck, completely different styles of damage here, and Lava Loon, which has been one of the longest running competitive sort of styles to play in Clash Royale, is coming out once
this is big.
again. Oh, and that zap
This is big.
off the mark.
This is huge. No, the last bomb not connecting, but it doesn't matter. Look at the damage dealt Fitchy. We saw this deck from him in his previous matchup, and it is going insane here in the final. The Mighty Miner Lava Loon will get the tower on the right with the pups as well. SB, not how you want to be starting the finals.
He's not happy about it either. You can see taking one hand off the phone there to consider his options, but I mean, Miner versus Mighty Miner as well, using the explosive escape actually, more so probably just to do a little bit of damage to the guards there than to reposition the Miner. Okay, now we've got the other win condition coming out from SB. So it's Mortar, Miner, and it has locked onto the tower.
This is going to be big. I mean, the Goblin Cage there, it's not going to stop too much as the Lava Hound sort of tanks the Musketeer here. The Fireball to come out will be cleaned up by the Goblin Brawler. And I mean, Fitchy has a good offensive on this left side. The Loon yet to come, possibly not to come at all, but the Lava Hound connects once more for some good damage.
Yeah, all of a sudden, SB is back in this one. Maybe one or two Miners will get him back into the position where they can start trading again.
The case, but as the push builds up once more on that left side, the Poison does some good damage, but I mean, with the Fire Spirit there, it doesn't hit. The Mighty Miner survives, as well as the Mega Minion. The Balloon will be guided by the Mortar, but the Mighty Miner alive means that it's going to disappear like nothing. The Royal Delivery, not enough. The Fireball connects. The Balloon, though, will it get a shot? Yes, it will! That is big for Fitchy, and SB visibly upset with that.
Again, we just get that Fireball Zap combo able to deal with the Musketeer, and when you look at SB's deck, that's about all he's got to deal with air. So once again, we've got one of these situations where Lava Loon is coming up against a deck where they really light on air defenses, and it makes it so hard for SB to get anything done. Shelters the guards there with a Valkyrie, and they try and do a little bit of damage onto that tower. It's actually pretty even at this point, but once again, how are you going to get through the rest of this? Royal Delivery cleans it up just in time, but now the Zap should be coming out soon, I imagine, and that could be enough for Fitchy to take down the tournament. He is the winner of the UOA LPL Pro Clash Cup ANZ Season 1. He is incredibly happy, you can see, and why wouldn't you be? From a position where he thought he'd been knocked out of the tournament, Fitchy has come back to win 2-1 in the final series.
You want to know the best bit, Genome? He did it with a card that we have seen barely any play of in this tournament, the Zap, to end it out. Fitchy, what a way. What a way to finish it off. I mean, an insane matchup. Goes down in the first, comes back with 2. The Electro Giant to keep him in it, and the Lava Hound. I mean, the first time that we've really seen him play it to a great success today. What a time to bust a handout like that. I mean, out of nowhere, you come out with a strong and great pick and close the final out. I mean, congratulations is definitely in order.
Yeah, it is. So look, why don't we hear from the man himself? It sounds like we're gonna talk to him in just a little bit. We're gonna have a look at the decks first and remind ourselves, you know, what happened throughout this epic series. And this was game 1.
The Royal Giant, arguably the big winning force there for SB, just closing it out in great fashion. Fitchy, unfortunately, not able to get too much going on the back foot early of the grand final, but going into game number 2, changed it up, bought the ace in the hole, the best choice that he has, the Electro Giant mirror deck, and it just ultimately steamrolled.
Yeah, game 2 with that Electro Giant coming out was an absolute bonanza there for Fitchy. It never looked in doubt, really. And then it was game 3 where we saw something a bit different there. The Lava Loon. This time, I mean, you know, again, every time you see this, it seems to be that 4 air unit combo, right? That gets it done. But as we talked about, it was Zap that was the difference. You know, not playing Log because that Musketeer was behind the tower. The Log wouldn't have reached there. You know, maybe Giant Snowball would have done the trick. But Zap gives you that immediacy of being able to deal with the threat. And yeah, once that Musketeer was gone, it was just too hard. All right, we've got our winner here with us, Fitchy. You know, you came through as the #1 seed. When we looked at you know, that qualification tournament. How are you feeling coming into the tournament after that great start?
Yeah, I mean, coming in second seed or first seed was great. Really set me up, and I was able to, you know, just progress through the stages.
Yeah, and you've done really, really well. And I mean, we saw you sort of implement that Electro Giant mirror deck right off the sort of first play day. Something that you arguably patent-pended. Is it a deck that you play a lot outside of competitive, or it is something that you maybe have found that is really only competitively viable? I mean, for you, it's got 100% win rate. I mean, that's got to be something, right?
I mean, the balance changes in like week 2 of the playoffs, when we saw like E-Giant just get like a massive buff for pretty much zero reason. It kind of just makes the deck broken. There's not much you can do, especially with like E-Giant Mirror and then like the champion. It kind of makes it a 3-card cycle and makes it really difficult for the opponent to counter, especially in the second and third games.
Yeah, I mean, okay, talking about, you know, how that series works out with, you know, like, you know, 1, 2, and 3. How do you think about that, like countering the opponents, you know, seeing what cards they've used, and then, you know, trying to build your decks around that? Like walk us through that process.
Yeah, so definitely I start with the first deck is kind of the hardest one to choose because you're trying to counter as much as possible. And it pretty much just comes down to if you get the good matchup or not. But the first deck is kind of more just like information gathering for the second and third game. And that's where you can really kind of put the match into your favor.
Go. And obviously the elephant in the room, I guess we do have to address it. You lost to Zulnino on the replay of the Poison. How does it feel going out, coming back in on the replay, and then coming forward all the way through to win it. I mean, how is that? That's got to be absolutely ecstatic.
It's crazy. Zelmino played very well, and he read me like a book pretty much. He got me every single game. There was pretty much nothing I could do each game. I got lucky in the first game against him, and then second and third game, there wasn't much I could do. It was just really unfortunate that he ran the card twice.
Yeah, look, it was a fatal mistake for him, but look, it definitely worked out for you there in the end. Look, we haven't had a huge amount of tournaments for Clash Royale in the ANZ region, for a game that's been out for what has it been, like 6 years or something. So, I mean, how long have you actually been competing for and looking for something like this in the region?
Yeah, so I've been playing competitively on and off for about the last 5 years.
Wow.
About 4 years ago, I was playing with more Asian teams as well. And then I took a break due to like uni starting and stuff like that, and just came back for this tournament. But seeing how they've actually started making some Australian Oceanic tournaments has been really great, really motivating, especially the time zone differences. Usually it's quite terrible.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's fantastic that LPL put this on. I'm so glad to hear that's got you back into the scene, and obviously that was a great decision to pick up the game once again. So look, thank you so much for talking to us, Fitchy. And yeah, look, congratulations on winning the tournament, mate. It was an excellent run by you.
Brilliant, thank you.
All right, so there you have it, guys. Why don't we just have a look at that bracket just to refresh our minds on how this all played out for our second stage of the tournament. I mean, we had those last 6 matches tonight. Fitchy really just stepping through there from, he was on the lower bracket from, that second run, right, after losing to Felipe. And then managing to get that revenge victory, essentially, in the lower bracket final, Proto.
Yeah, he did really, really well. And, 2-0 trades to come back and win the grand final. SB, we cannot count him out by any degree whatsoever. I mean, a player that has taken down so many big names in the tournament, from 13th seed to finish in second with an MVP nomination. I mean, he's definitely going to be a player to keep your eye on moving forward in the competitive Clash scene, because even without the win, he's an insane player. So congratulations to both at the end of the night, because it's been an absolutely amazing stage 2 run.
Yeah, it's nice to hear, there's a little bit of a revival in the scene here with players that have been around for a long time coming back as we start to see some tournaments coming through for this fantastic esport now. And look, I know you guys in the chat have been waiting for this all night. Remember, of course, we do have the Nano Leaf giveaway. So why don't we bring that up and see who is the lucky viewer? It's going to be Bunny. As he said, he's been having a tough time, and I hope this eases that a little bit for you, mate. Congratulations. You are going to be walking away with that Nanoleaf care package there. We'll be in contact with you very shortly to make sure that you get all your goodies. Okay, look, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. It's been an awesome season. I want to say thank you from me and Proto and Astro have been had the pleasure to cast this with you. It's been really fun to see how the meta's developed as well throughout this. So much fun stuff. The Electro Giant, which we predicted at the start, really came to fruition by the end. A key piece of Fitchy's victory there in the end. What else have you thought about this season, Proto?
Just everything. I mean, how it's changed, the development from the players, everything has just been insane. I mean, just watching it unfold from the booth has been a pleasure. It really, really has. We've seen great decks. We've seen mismatched decks walk away with victories where they shouldn't have. We've seen clone spells go insane and then never played again subsequently after that night. I mean, we've really had a mixed bag here, Genome. And for season 1, I think we've definitely done pretty well for ourselves.
Yeah, look, Lumberjack clone bats still the I think the highest win percentage of any deck throughout the entire season. Maybe we'll see it come back next time, and we certainly hope that after a great season like this, big shout out to LPL for revitalizing the scene for Clash Royale here in ANZ. We hope we'll be back with another season, but for now, that's it from us. Congratulations to Fitchy and all the other players that made it to the top 16 here. And a big shout out to the University of Auckland, of course, for supporting this tournament. Thanks, guys.